Good morning. Welcome to the Downtown Design Review Committee for May 19th, 2016. First order of business is to silence your telephones. Second is roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner.
Present.
Charles Ainsworth. Corey Bates. Nathaniel Harding. Connie Scothorn. And Danielle Theriot. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I assume everyone has read the minutes. Do we have a motion for approval?
Move to approve. Second.
Did you have a comment about your minutes? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed by the same sign? Thank you. Nathaniel is abstaining. I do want to make a point to recognize we have a new member, Nathaniel Harding. Very excited to have him. He's been involved in several things around the city.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to learning more and participating in the process.
Great. Awesome. All righty. Moving on, we have no cases withdrawn. We have a continuance, and that continuance was to June, and now it is to July. Okay. Any comments about this? Any discussion from the audience? Do we have a motion?
Move to continue.
Faulkner, Scothorn, motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. We have two items on the consent docket. Any comments from the committee on the consent docket? Anyone from the gallery want to speak on the consent docket? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay. That was a Gigi and Corey motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The consent docket is approved. Cases for individual consideration. I'm going to move the agenda around a little bit. In cases A and B will be moved to the heel of the docket, and we'll start with case C, 300 Southwest 7th. Is the applicant present? Would you like to come forward?
Yes, Mary Margaret Jones, Hargraves Associates, and Aaron Pelot from Butzer Architecture Urbanism will also be giving part of this, or here to answer questions.
Okay.
We have a slide presentation of all the drawings we submitted to you, but I hesitate to go through them in great detail because I suspect maybe you have questions, but I'll give sort of an overview and then come back to any questions. Does that make sense?
Okay, Mary Margaret. Can we have Laura, is there anything you need to discuss with us before the presentation starts?
Just that we received correspondence that you all have, and it was put in front of your place. The author of that correspondence is here, so I just wanted to make sure you saw it, read. It came after the packets went out, so we just wanted to draw that to your attention.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So let's go.
Okay. Laura, can you cue it up so that the first slide is in view mode or in full screen mode? There you go. Okay, so an overview with all the renderings of the park. You guys have seen the park before in general, so we're now back with much more detailed drawings, especially on all of the particular elements. Starting with paving, there is a majority of concrete used on the site, both concrete pavers and poured-in-place concrete. The long winding path through the woodland is Flexipave, which is a porous pavement without joints and is a good thing to do through the woodland gardens. And then there is granite used in particular places of accent, like at the interactive water feature on Robinson and all along the promenade. And then in the garden areas and in the places that are much more about landscape and the dog play area, we have decomposed granite so that it has a sort of more flexible feeling and a more landscape feeling. So that's the overview. There's also some sand and safety play surface in the children's play area, the children's garden. So that pretty much summarizes it, and then it goes through sheet by sheet, which you have. The darker pattern here, the grid pattern here, is the Flexipave. The rest of it is the concrete pavers or poured-in-place concrete. And of course, just to back up for a second, along the boulevard and along Hudson, we are following the 180 standards, with, of course, the plaza meeting the corner at Robinson and the Boulevard, and unit pavers behind the stage for multiple use of the stage. So the stage is grass on one side, paving on the other, so it can be used for small events and large events. Again, moving down toward the lake, same system. Moving over on the other side on Robinson toward the children's play area, the same system. The dog park, moving down, there's the lake. Oops, there's the interactive fountain on Robinson, which has granite. And then around Union Station. And then around the skate pavilion at Robinson, which around that pavilion is the soft decomposed granite. And of course the promenade spine that goes up to Skydance Bridge. So that's, in a nutshell, paving. Happy to come back in more detail. You have the schedule as well for lighting. These are the different light fixtures. So we have a variety of light fixtures because of the size of the park and because of the different areas and the different needs. We have the first one is a indirect lighting, which is a cutoff luminaire, because we have some areas where we want to shine down. We have some areas where we want the light to shine up, which is the top middle fixture, and then bounce back down very softly. We do have some bollards in the gardens, and we do have some of the what we call wand lights, the ones that look like sticks around the lake. And then we do have some high mast lights that light the oval itself, the big, large expanse of grass. And then we have some accent uplights and some accent lights in seat walls and furniture. Then speaking of furniture, this is the array of furniture. So we have two types of, well, really three types of benches. We have the standard 180 bench, of course, on those sidewalks. But then within the park, we have, in some places, these round wood benches that go, that create a kind of fanciful movement through the plaza at the Boulevard and Robinson. We have movable tables and chairs. We have very traditional benches around the lake, and then we have more custom benches along the promenade. And these drawings show you where every light is, every light fixture type, and every bench type. So when I talked about the circular benches and the arcing, curving benches, this is where they occur at that corner of Robinson and the Boulevard and in the urban gardens. All the benches, by the way, are arranged in such a way that there is wheelchair accessibility. There are spaces for wheelchairs, and there are spaces where wheelchairs can gather in a more gathering kind of way. All the paving surfaces I should have mentioned are ADA, and we don't have any steps anywhere in the park except where the promenade starts to go up to Skydance Bridge. On the sides, there are step seat walls, but of course there are no steps in the path of travel. So again, all the lights as you move down and over. Again, these are always right to left, right to left, right to left, moving north to south. It's important that the park is safe at night and also be a beacon for people to use in the evenings. This is now we're getting into planting. So you've already reviewed trees. The trees are already purchased, as you know. We're now at a level of detail for what's happening on the ground plane. This is the children's play area, and you see all the elements of the children's play area. And that I think you know that it's arranged for toddlers, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 9, and older, so and adults. So there are play areas for all age groups, including a children's learning garden. This is the blow-up of the 180 streetscape plan. And then this is a planting blow-up of some of those woodland gardens that are each of different themes. Some are dry gardens, some are gardens about scent, some are gardens about sound, some are gardens about butterflies, and some are wet because we're collecting stormwater in some of these. And some are sunny and some are shady. This is then the bridge that goes over the lake, where the lake pinches, and you can row your boat paddle your boat under the bridge. The bridge has a sort of friendly yet industrial character. So the exterior of the bridge is a steel frame, and then it is set within it is wood, and then there are benches within that, which you can see in the plan at the top. There are wood benches set within, so it's a place to pause as well as a place to cross. And then the dog park, and the surface and the fence. This is one of the few places where we have fence. In fact, there are only 2 places we have fence, around the dog park and around the sort of back of house area of Union Station. This is a sampling of the types of signs that will be in the park, both directional and informational, and the main sign. And again, the furniture, including the movable tables and chairs, and the picnic tables, and trash cans, and the dog park receptacles, which are different, of course, than the others. Water, drinking fountains, bike racks, the 180 bench, the round benches around in the gardens, and the benches that are at Robinson and the Boulevard, and the fence that's at the dog park, and the fence that's around the sort of utilitarian area at the very back of Union Station. And it's taller. They'll be storing stuff in that area. I think these next images are heavy. So we would move into architecture unless, do you want to ask me some questions now before we move to the pieces of architecture?
Why don't we finish the
Finish.
entire
Okay.
presentation, and then
Right.
we'll move into
Aaron
comments.
Pilot.
So I'll talk briefly about the buildings. We have 5 park buildings, which you see up here. The cafe on the top left, the stage to the right, and below the boathouse in the middle right, the play pavilion, which is next to the park, or the kids' playground, and then the shade pavilion on the bottom right. We can probably skip through the 2D drawings unless, if you have questions, we can come back to them. I'll talk about the palette of materials is similar for all the buildings. We're using an architectural metal, a standing seam, roof, and wall panel. We have brick on the facade. We have sealed concrete floor slabs. We have some accent wood. I'm going to skip to the end. We'll go through, we have some 3D images. Yeah. It's working. Are there any questions about building materials while this is moving?
Laura, do you have a comment about
I'm sorry, in your staff report, as you noticed, the only item that we had for discussion was the use of fiber cement panels. That, as you know, because of the way our guidelines are worded, we need to bring that to your attention because it's not a totally approved listed material, although, and it's just one of the materials that Lisa wanted me to make sure she pointed out that was in the staff report.
Okay, so you said fiber cement. I'm going to clarify that that was there's no fiber cement anymore on the project, so we nixed that and we're putting brick in lieu of. So earlier design development drawings had fiber cement. So the drawings that you see before you have all brick. And so we'll go, I'm sorry, I thought the images were separate. We only had the consolidated ones. So we'll just go backwards real quick and kind of march through each building. So this is the shade pavilion. You see the architectural standing seam metal roof. That kind of wraps down, turns into the wall panel. We have 2 enclosed areas, 2 blocks up on the top. Those are bathrooms, and those are fully cladded in brick. This is the floor plan or roof plan. It's just a mostly open, universal space with a couple of bathrooms, a ticket, a little concession area. This is the play pavilion adjacent to the playground. And so, again, you have architectural standing seam metal roof. That panel wraps down the wall a bit. We have primarily brick. On the bottom left, you see a little bit of wood accent, or bottom middle. And we also have an architectural louver system, which is painted steel louver fabrication, which will be painted steel. Roof plan, all standing seam metal. This is the boathouse. So again, architectural standing seam metal wall panel and roof panel. The left and right of the elevation you see on the bottom is brick. This is the one building where we have a guardrail, which is also architectural metal fabrication. This building has louvers on the top left elevation, number 3. Again, painted steel fabrication. Standing seam metal roof. We have a sort of a box out mechanical pit on the left side, top. And the stage, similar, brick on the front, tall portion, and then architectural standing seam roof, and then a wood accent ceiling. And we'll go back to the cafe here. So same thing, floor plan, fully on the stage floor plan, and then fully clad standing seam roof. And I think it's working. So in the cafe, we have a tower, which we're calling a lantern, which is architectural metal fabrication. You see it on the left here. And the side of it is the same architectural standing seam roof that we're using on the other buildings. And then we have a curtain wall system, so fully glazed indoor seating area, then an open outdoor area, and then the rest of it's cladded in brick.
So if I could just confirm, because I wanted to go back through and see where we actually referenced the fiber cement panels. And it was referenced for the boathouse, Building C, the playground pavilion, Building D, and the Parkgate Shade Pavilion, Building E, both in the description under items for consideration and in our discussion. So that material was replaced with brick in all 3 of those?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. So not that we had an opposition to that material, it's just that we have to bring it
Right. And I understand there are
before you.
types of fiber cement that are,
Yes.
they're not all created equal.
Okay.
And if I could just add, I should have mentioned before, 2 of the pieces of architecture are slightly elevated above grade. So speaking of ADA access, the stage, of course, as you see in that image, has to be slightly raised. So there is a ramp up to the stage. And the boathouse is slightly raised. And there is both a ramp, 2 ramps and steps up to the boathouse. It's slightly raised because of the 100-year or the 500-year flood elevation. It had to be raised out of the water, potential water.
I guess on those lines, we should add that the buildings, we're complying with the IBC, which references ANSI for accessibility compliance in bathrooms, door clearances, maneuver room clearances, things like that.
Okay, thanks. Just to take an aside, are there any questions from the committee or any comments that you would like to inject at this time?
One question regarding lighting. Was there a base foot candle reference point that the park was designed to?
There is, and of course it varies throughout the park, so it ranges depending upon the area, but no area is unlit. Some areas are lit more than others, and they follow all the guidelines for. Of course, the cafe will be very well lit. The oval can be lit to football field standards for when there are team sports happening or nighttime events happening. So the oval can be really brightly lit or less brightly lit, but all of the park will be at least a half a foot candle at all times.
Anything else?
Yeah, I didn't know what FlexiPave was.
Right, it's kind of a new material. We have now used it on a park in New Orleans, and successfully it works. You can hold it up, you can run water through a sample of it, and the water goes right through. So it's poured. It's a matrix sort of substance, and it's poured, doesn't have seams or joints, and it allows total porosity, and it holds up very well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have there been, I guess in New Orleans you probably don't have this issue, but if in freezing conditions, is the water...
We're also
cause
using
problems with
it, because it goes through, we're also using it in Minneapolis. So,
And there's been no issues with
no
it
issues, yeah.
expanding?
Yeah.
Anything else from the committee? Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Jack, would you like to speak?
Is that close enough? Can everyone hear me?
I can.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. As a citizen of Oklahoma City, again, my name is Jack McMahon. All of us are awed by the beautiful design of this park and look forward to receiving the benefits of it. Not only the citizens here, but the citizens we hope to come from afar. One of the things I am concerned about, however, is that although we have taken or Hargrave has taken considerable effort to assure that physical accessibility is recognized throughout the entire park, programmatic accessibility doesn't seem to be an active topic in terms of how we are going to make programs in the park accessible. Title II of ADA is very explicit to say that not only is it the responsibility of the municipality to provide physical access, but it's also the responsibility of the municipality to make sure programs, activities, and services are provided so that all citizens have opportunities for equal access and equal benefit and participation of those programs. So when we think of things like gardens, there has been huge attention paid to geometry, shape, the different types of plantings. So we have colors, we have textures that are going in that have significance in terms of an opportunity to experience those gardens. Similarly, we have things like signs, where there has been extreme care to provide a design that works within the overall framework of the park. But the reality is that if you were a citizen with a cognitive disability, like a TBI, a vet returning from the war, or someone who's blind, how would you have an opportunity to receive the same benefit or participation in that garden experience, boathouse experience, or signage experience if in fact you couldn't see it? So a lot of the design that has been presented here, as beautiful as it may be and functional as it may be for people that are ambulatory, the question I have, and I haven't seen addressed, is what is the accommodation for programmatic access in this plan? So that's my question, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay.
I'd just like to say I couldn't agree more. We are working with, as you know, the potential operator, Myriad Gardens, and working with them on this very topic of programming. And I think that, like, no park is going to be successful, period, without programming. And that programming does need to speak to all ages, all abilities, cognitive disabilities as well as physical disabilities. So we totally agree. The issue of signage and whether or not there's Braille, whether or not there's symbols that make interpretation easier is something I think we can still work on together. We're still in the phase, we're still in that phase of detailing. So I think there are a lot of good points and a lot of good ideas that we hope to continue to accommodate in the final drawings and specs, and then in the programming that goes forward for generations in the park.
Okay. So let me get this straight, Laura. The approval today would be for the structures and the basic layout of the pathways.
It's my understanding that what you're approving today is the list of the items under A. As modified, we just modified materials on 3 of the buildings. It includes the very last one, if I'm remembering correctly the way this was worded. It actually, public, yeah, well, it's even longer than this, yeah. It actually says construct the public park, but I mean, it spells out issues.
I guess what I'm asking, does any of these approvals that we would give preclude the opportunity for including programming or including additional accessibility?
I would say not, even if it results in a subsequent revision being necessary. It does talk about installing the directional information signs, which is one of the items they just brought up about making sure that the signs have Braille and everything. I don't think the way this is worded precludes the signs to address all in their design. I'm trying to, the way this is worded, see, I don't see that this precludes addressing all of the issues. I think but asking Jack if, because I don't want him to think that approval then does not allow continued discussion and addressing of concerns. So the way I word this is such that we were looking at the drawings, the basic drawings and the building's design obviously address ADA as far as
Wheelchair accessibility.
Wheelchair accessibility and the restrooms and everything like that. But there, as we heard, there are other issues that we do need to consider. But I don't want to speak for Jack if he thinks that the way that we've worded this would preclude any changes in the scope of the project.
If I may add, the real question is not whether or not it complies with ADA. The question is, how does it comply with ADA?
Right.
Physical accessibility is very clearly spelled out in the accessibility guidelines. So how wide the door is or steep the ramp should be is very clear. Program access is not at all. It is very subjective because of the millions of different types of programs there are countrywide. So the Department of Justice chooses to approach things like best practices in the U.S., and those best practices in many cases are published by institutions of museums or National Park Services. But if you go to something like a Chicago Botanical Gardens, for example, where their view is the interpretation of those gardens through audio description and audio tours as a way of fundamentally providing an equivalent experience to people who can't see it, and signage, an equal opportunity to have tactile models, for example, to enjoy the shape, design, structure of architecture. So all I'm saying is not that we haven't complied with the accessibility guidelines from a physical standpoint, but how, in fact, has the committee decided to review or include those in the final plans for the city.
Okay. So you're familiar with the list of items that are being heard today?
I am only as familiar with them as you are, in the sense that I have seen the list. I have seen I've seen visual representations of some of the plans. I haven't actually seen the plans, nor have I had actual dialogue in terms of how program access is going to be achieved, which I would welcome.
Well, our purview is to hear design items, and with the exception of maybe the signage, I don't know that any of these design items address programs or programming, and I understand that you've got a great wealth of knowledge, and Mr. McMahon has come to talk to us about various things in the past, and we appreciate his insight. But I don't know, with the exception of signage, if there would be any issues with moving ahead with this.
The way I hear it, it sounds like additional information or additional items are what would address the concerns that we're hearing.
Over and above this list?
Yes, that's how and except for the issue of the signage that I brought up, I don't see any of the other ones that approval of those would actually preclude the dialogue, and if there are changes that are going to be made, I don't think that changes anything here other than the signage. But we're talking about, the signage is going to be here, but adding stuff to the signage, this doesn't preclude that.
Okay. Does anyone want to take a stab at this?
I would point out, and I don't know if we need to specifically reference the change of the fiber cement panels on 3 of the buildings, which were buildings C, D, and E, was replaced with brick.
Okay, my understanding, and the drawings are, the wording is very, very small. I didn't see any fiber cement in the drawings.
And I was just going off, the staff report actually spells out fiber cement panels on those 3 buildings. So
correct?
I don't know.
Are there fiber cement panels shown in the drawings? Because I'm only seeing brick and metal.
That's correct. They're just brick and metal.
Okay.
So we can make.
Okay.
So we can make a comment about that being in the drawings, but not.
And I'll make sure that the final CA references the correct material.
Okay. Okay.
Just to belabor this point, I am reading fiber cement panel on the drawings that I have.
Oh, I just didn't see it,
So I do think it's worth including that in whatever motion's made.
Great. Got it.
And we'll make sure the drawings that are included with the CA correctly reflect what you approved today.
Okay. So do we have any kind of motion or any other questions?
Would it be a motion with the condition or the amendment that the drawings are updated? Would that be the appropriate way to do that?
On that particular item? Yeah. You want to try that?
I will make that motion.
Whoa. Okay. There are a bunch of items here. You may choose to name them or just say across the board.
Yeah, I'll move approval of all the items with the clarification or amendment that the drawings be updated to reflect changing from the fiber cement to the brick.
Did you have any issues with the signage?
No, my only comment on that is so the signage that's indicated, everything that's shown here is just examples, and so we're not committing ourselves to what the signs say or how they work, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity to still make sure that the signage is appropriate and also with programming. And those are also good comments for the MAPS committee to consider as well. And so that'll be important for that discussion to continue on in the MAPS dialogue when it comes to programming especially.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? That would be Gigi. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you very much for participating, Mr. McMahon. The next item is 2020 Southwest 2nd Street. Is the applicant present? Laura, do you want to say anything about this real quick? No? Okay. You want to introduce yourself?
Brian Fitzsimmons, Fitzsimmons Architects, 2721 North Walker.
Good morning. The last time you saw this site was beginning of the year when we had a request for demolishing the building that was 32,000 square feet. The site is immediately west of Chesapeake Arena. Subsequent to that, the foundation was kept, as was referenced at that meeting, and we have a situation where it's now a parking lot, and so we need to come back and actually approve that. Because of the site was totally concrete from property line to property line, and it's that entire yellow area. And let me, we need to come before you with approval of this. The request is actually, they want to do a temporary parking lot, recognizing what's going on in that area, and they reference 4 years in their request letter, and they will have to go to the Board of Adjustment for that. The Board of Adjustment can be time-specific in their approval. So I went out and took some pictures, and you can see the building here in the lower right-hand corner. That used to be the wall, exterior wall of the building, which was right at the sidewalk. And so it is immediately across from Chesapeake. What I want to bring up is this. This is the site up here where the asterisk is, and it's going to be adjacent to the new Oklahoma, excuse me, I wrote that wrong on there, Oklahoma City Boulevard. I was corrected recently. And I wanted to show all the projects that are being worked on or are getting ready to be worked on in that area. And we have the park, and we just had a presentation on the park. We have the streetcar maintenance facility that you all have seen. The existing Santa Fe Depot, we've been seeing a lot recently in the news about the convention center and then the hotel site that's up here. And with all of this going on in this area, I think all of us would recognize that the highest and best use and the future use of this site we're discussing is not going to be a parking lot. To address our ordinance requirements for landscaping would result in having to literally bust up the concrete to get to dirt to put in the landscaping, which would probably be a significant expense. And after weighing everything and looking at what's getting ready to happen, and the Oklahoma City Boulevard, this is the last segment that's coming in, and it's supposed to go out for bid this year. We can't really get any more definitive than that explanation at the present time. City staff is actually reviewing DOT's plans right now for this area. Staff felt it was totally appropriate to support a temporary parking lot at this location in the current configuration that it is. They had asked for 4 years. Staff felt more comfortable with a date. And so as you can see in the staff report that we ultimately, because there's 2 motions you're going to be making, and one is obviously, the last one is your recommendation to the Board of Adjustment, and we felt July 1st, 2020, which is like 4 years and 2 months, seemed like appropriate time. And if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them. But there is just so much going on over there that requiring this work now, and I mean, immediately adjacent to it, to the south, is going to get all torn up. And if you go there and look now, there's parking in that area. Let me get that, which I believe is up here in this upper, looking south. That right there is where Oklahoma City Boulevard's going to go. So this obviously is an old picture from when the interstate was still there. Hopefully our areas will catch up at some point, but the area is going to look totally different at some point.
I agree with what you're saying, but I have a question out of curiosity. So what happens at the end of 4 years? I mean, because the work's been done, and then what happens after 4 years?
Well, if they're requesting a temporary parking lot, it would have to cease being used as a parking lot on, however, if it does go forward with that and the Board of Adjustment approves it, whatever date or time frame the Board of Adjustment applies to it, it would have to stop being used as a parking lot. Before the end of 4 years, all of this work that's happening is going to be done in that area, and I would imagine they would already be working on either they're going to develop it or somebody has approached them to develop that site.
I mean, they would just have to stop parking cars there, I guess?
Yes.
So it's...
Or they could come for an extension or another temporary. I mean, they have several options, but all of those options would have to come back before the DDRC.
I think my concern about this is that currently there's really not any kind of planting or anything like that on this site.
The only existing, which is adjacent, is on the eastern edge. That's grass between the paving and the sidewalk.
East.
And
That's outside of the property.
I think
right here.
that your illustration, Laura, is a great
That one?
example. Yeah, this is a great illustration.
I apologize for the handwritten.
That's okay.
Did it quick. So.
But it shows that I'm not sure if really where the landscaping would help, but it seems like this is in a very prominent site that is going to be seen by visitors. The Oklahoma Boulevard will be open in less than 4 years. Maybe the site will be sold and used in that period of time. But if our ordinance requires landscaping in a parking lot, it seems like we could make it less landscaping than the points required, but it does seem like it would be appropriate to have some landscaping.
I agree with that. I think 4 years is a significant period of time to have a temporary parking area. In the past, when we've looked at other temporary parking areas and approved them, for periods of time we've been very careful to look at screening methods and also some landscaping. So I think we have a precedent for deciding that way. In the past, the convention center, just to note, and I think this goes along with your wonderful diagram, Laura, the convention center is scheduled to be completed in 19, the streetcar in the fall of 18, the park in the fall of 18, and this takes this to July of 2020, so there's just a lot of significant developments that are scheduled to be finished around there, but this could, 4 years seems like a long time to not have some kind of provision for
Let me
some landscaping.
at least say a few words. I don't disagree that this is a very unusual case and a very unusual request. If it were a different site and a different situation, this would not be before you. The existing piece of land is covered in concrete, and the intent is to make use of that or possibly do nothing with it until all of this plays out. I might also add the boulevard is going to the south, but also the streetcar is immediately going to abut the southern edge and the eastern edge and make a turn. So there's yet another thing that affects what would be the most effective landscaping would be on that southern and eastern edge, which is totally unknown what's going to happen there.
Has any above grade or temporary landscaping been considered?
It's been discussed. A lot of it is the expense of maintenance, getting irrigation, above-grade landscaping does not survive very well. That would require variance as well. It's not allowed. So anything we do short of fulfilling the entire intent of the zoning would require variance.
I have trouble finding assurance that because there's known future development around this site, that guarantees that something's going to happen with this site at some point. That's an assumption. And with that in mind, I think if anything's going to be done with this site, it should be done with intention that relates to the guidelines.
And just as a contrast to that, I can see that the staging of the street construction, things that are going to happen in the park, could impact the ability for landscaping to live during the next couple of years. So I'm wondering if we couldn't shorten that period of time and then look at re-look at it 2 years from now. Do you feel like making the provision to have a temporary parking lot for 2 years instead of 4 years?
Could you clarify what was the anticipated date of completion of the park and the streetcar, et cetera?
The park is fall of 18. The streetcar is fall of 18.
I think the boulevard's a bigger deal.
Boulevard, we don't have a date yet because they have not gone out for bids for this last segment from Klein to, I'm not sure how far to the east. This is the last segment. They're just now getting ready to finalize those drawings to go out for bid.
And the boulevard could actually affect the streetcar, because it's my understanding that the boulevard is going on the northern side, or I'm sorry, the streetcar is going on the northern side of the boulevard. And so there may be some maneuvering there. I don't know.
I would still feel more comfortable with 2 years instead of 4 years.
I would agree with that.
Well, I don't have a problem with the parking lot being there for 2 years, but I do have a problem with no landscaping at all being done. I mean, I think this is right across from the Chesapeake Arena, big, high-profile building, and to have just a concrete pavement across the street, I just don't think that says much for Oklahoma City.
The one thing I would point out, and I know my pictures they're small, but if you drive that area, which is not easy these days because of all the work going on where the park's going to go, I'm trying to figure out the best way. Immediately north of the site, these buildings are no longer there, and that is surface parking with no landscaping. And I'm just saying this area has a lot of parking lots that have been there for a while. Immediately over here, it's parking lot, and none of these have any landscaping. So right, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this won't be the only parking lot that is in a sea of landscaping. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
And I don't necessarily think that we need to bring this parking lot completely up to code, but I think on the eastern edge where you've got that grass, if you did some high-impact design work there.
The challenge with the eastern edge is what I mentioned about the streetcar. The most recent plan that we have seen is that the streetcar turns up and actually goes right through that grass strip.
Yeah, the grass is actually in the right-of-way that he's referring to. That's this area right here. Right? Is that?
That's correct.
Yes, okay.
And so we could do that, but it might be gone in 6 months.
I can see allowing 2 years and then having you come back if you want to continue to use it as parking. But Connie does not. So clearly.
I guess I don't understand. That means we're going to have this for 2 years, and then what happens in 2 years?
They'd have to come back and either request this again, or they've got a project for that site.
That's true.
Got anything in the works?
The only thing in the works is that we know something has to happen, but we also need to see how everything plays out around it. There's potential land acquisition that is impacted by the streetcar. There's way too many moving parts.
So you'd be willing to go with 2 years? We don't have to vote yes on this. I just wanted to throw that out.
In 2 years, you'll know about the streetcar.
In 2 years, we'll know hopefully everything there is to know. And the reason we had requested 4 years is previous precedent by the basketball court and a few other projects around town. 4 years seemed to be the standards.
So just as a reminder, we have two motions that we're going to need to
Right.
make at the end, and change the date if you're going with the 2
Anyone-
years.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and Section D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant obtains a variance from the Board of Adjustment from the parking lot requirements of Section 7200.1.f4, and from the parking lot landscaping requirements within Article 11.
Okay, do we have a second?
That's- the second part.
Yeah, the timeline is the recommendation of the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Okay, that's a Bates and Faulkner motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustments for variance to expire July 1st, 2018.
Can I make one minor request to go to the end of 2018, since that's the expected completion of these projects? That's approximately.
Well, you're pushing it.
I know.
So that would make it 2.5 years.
Well, we would
Yeah, I
we would
think
still know what's coming, even though
Yeah.
it's prior to it being complete, right?
I think we'll have more information in 2 years about streetcar design, about the boulevard.
It will not be finished by then, and yes, we will know what's happening, and then between the planning stages of the next one to this one, it will not immediately break ground, I'm guessing.
We have a motion that has been approved for 2 years. Anybody want to change that motion? I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we voted on.
So-
Yeah, we voted on. We're ready to vote on the Board of Adjustment.
Well, actually, I think
I gotta
he
finish.
actually hadn't gotten all the way through the
Right.
motion. And
So do you
So-
feel like 2 years is?
The motions.
From what we know right now, I would believe on July 1st, 2018, there would be enough knowledge of what's being planned in the surrounding sites to at least have an understanding of where this site could move in its future development.
And you'll know whether or not this land is going to be accumulated by other people and.
And we can come back in July of 2018 and have the same conversation.
And to clarify on the route, I think the streetcar route will actually be done by that time, and if it's not done, it'll be very, very, very close. It'll be, a year and a half into final drawings and all that, so it's, essentially no risk on that particular point.
I move
Forgot
to-
we had the streetcar expert in our heads.
I move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance to expire July 1st, 2018, from the parking lot requirements of Section 7200.1.F4.4, and from the parking lot landscape requirements within Article 11, on the basis that the site's use as a parking lot is temporary.
Second. That was a Bates, Faulkner motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is 621 North Robinson Avenue. Is the applicant present? Would you introduce yourself and write your name on the piece of paper in front of you?
I'm signed in. My name is Robin Zerflu. I'm with Smith Dahlia Architects, and I represent the design team associated with the renovation of 621 North Robinson,
Okay.
the Journal Record Building.
Great. Laura, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Just, the proposal is to add an additional level, a glass level up on the roof. Redo the main entrance, which is the east-facing entrance, and in addition to opening up some lower windows, as well as there's a few windows on the south wall that had been blocked in, and they're going to open those. And as you saw, the staff did recommend approval. We did point out some items, items for discussion dealing with historic renovation. One of our issues dealt with the placement of the penthouse, and in discussing that issue with the applicant, they advised that the design was based on an economic desire for a certain amount of lease space, and so that's how they ended up with the footprint that they had. We pointed out that in the conservation and rehabilitation guidelines for Oklahoma City, that it talks about setting rooftop additions back, and that is, I'm just pointing that out, that is included in your staff report. You're going to hear the same thing on the next item that we're getting ready to discuss on North Broadway. So there's similarities in both of those, and I just wanted to make sure I pointed that back. And we also indicate just how close it is to some of the edges of the existing building in that discussion.
Okay, great.
So maybe the sort of practical way to look at this is to look at some of the renderings and go through the list as it appears on the staff report. That might be the easiest way to kind of look at it. The overall goal for the project is to complete a renovation that was started in 1999 by the city to convert this eastern portion of the Journal Record Building into alternative office space, and so that the renovations that we're proposing for the building are fairly limited and fairly targeted towards that effort. The main one is obviously the construction of the penthouse structure on the roof of the building. There are really sort of three converging conditions that result in the shape and size of the penthouse as it is. First is a structural concern on the building. We have some limitations with the way that the building was put together. Originally built as a Masonic shrine temple, it doesn't have sort of a structural grid that is logical and and makes sense. So we have done a lot of scanning and working with the structural engineers to find the best place to insert the loads into the building and be able to create a viable way to construct the penthouse on the top. The other things are creating a space that is meaningful around the rooftop structures on the building that give us reasonable leasable space, and then also the penthouse itself, the addition of the glass around the perimeter and the skylights that we propose on the top are the source of daylighting that goes into the fifth story of the building. And that fifth story of the building is behind the cornice of at the top of above the top row of windows on that side, which means that there are no windows in that fifth story of the building. What happens when we put the addition on the top and the skylights that come through, as well as cut some holes in the floor, is that we can not only take advantage of the approximately 6,000 square feet in the penthouse, but we can also activate an additional 5,000 square feet of floor space on the fifth floor that wasn't available to us previously. And both of those things are critical to the economic viability of the conversion to office space, to be able to work out the pro forma for the building. The other items that we're asking for approval on the south side, we've been working with the National Memorial Museum to open up the windows that were on the south side that had been blocked up at various points in time, and to add a couple of new openings. And that is also with the same goal of inviting additional natural light and views into the office space to make the office spaces more viable. The openings that we will reopen and the openings that we will create will have glass in them that is the same as the darkened shaded glass that's currently on the south side. And we had, like I said, we've been working with the museum, and they are in support of the way that we have proposed that on the south side. The other renovation that we plan is at the east entry. In 1947, the east entry was modified to include an applied limestone entrance with some black granite columns that are not in specific keeping with the neoclassical design of Layton's original building, and it's our hope to reinstate the proportions and the look and the elegance of the neoclassical design on that face of the building, and remove that addition and go back with the same proportions using very nice pictures that we have from 1922 and 23 when it was constructed, to recreate the proportions and the openings at that east entrance. We'll be doing that out of limestone and out of cast stone, and we'll be doing that with an eye towards making sure that it's obvious where we've made the renovation and where we haven't. The doors that are proposed in that entrance are simple pivot hinge steel, stainless and glass openings, and that is similar to the doors that we've proposed on the north side. We'll be replacing the existing doors with doors that actually work, which is a really good place to start. The lighting for both of those entrances will stay concealed. We're proposing recessed fixtures within the ceiling cavities of both the north entrance and the east entrance, so that those fixtures are not going to be part of the design vocabulary that happens on those sides. In terms of materials on the penthouse addition on the top, it's primarily a storefront system, so it's a metal and glass, mostly glass system, with metal panels at the top that create a cornice line at the top that is consistent kind of with the language and the proportions and the composition of the elevation that we're working with. And then on the more institutional sides of the building, if you will, the stair that goes up to the roof, the back side of the addition that only faces the roof to the western side of the building, we propose using a simple stucco material, and all of those materials are intended to be of a color that's consistent with the limestone of the building, so that they make a contemporary addition, but they blend in as well as they can.
And while we have it here, I'll just point out the basement windows that's referenced in the staff report are, is it all three areas? Or is it
All three of those windows
these
are
right down in the lower right-hand corner? They were blocked up, and they're going to be opening those up again.
Yeah, they exist currently filled in with limestone, and we're proposing opening those up. And it's still in the same intent to bring more natural light into the spaces to make sure that those tenant spaces are more viable and more comfortable and more interesting.
Okay. Just a quick question on the doors. You're replacing the doors that are there now, and my impression is that those are not the existing doors? I mean, the original doors?
They're not the original doors.
So are you trying to emulate more of what was originally there, or what's your goal with the doors?
The goal is to create as much of an open glass presence at the street as we can on each of those sides. On the east side, which is the 1923 entrance side, the goal is to create a glow from inside the building that can be seen from the outside. And so put in a very elegant set of glass doors that have stainless top and bottom rails on them. So in sort of in the vein of renovating that entrance such that it honors the 1923 shape and size, we're using more contemporary doors that are mostly glass to be able to allow an inside-outside connection and a little bit better experience from both the pedestrian side and from the interior side.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and do that? I'm really excited to hear what Katie has to say about all this. So whenever we're done up here.
Okay. I just have a couple questions just for clarification. The stainless steel that's being used for the new doors, do you know the finish that's intended on that?
Yeah, it'll be a bright shine.
A polished finish?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the reconstruction of the original doors and entry sequence, what kind of procedures are you going through as far as color matching the existing limestone?
Well, we have not entered into that exercise with the contractor yet, but there are currently two colors of limestone that are on the building. There's a slightly grayer version at the bottom and a slightly yellower version at the top. It will be our intent to match the limestone that is at that lower version that is consistent with the facade along that street. So we'll go through. We will submit samples. We'll have some samples submitted to us that we'll go through.
Do you know where that original limestone came from?
I do not.
Okay. And then the storefront for the addition on the top of the building, the color of the storefront, you're calling for a similar limestone?
Yeah, it's a champagne anodized is the color that we intend to use, and then we intend to color match that with the metal panels above it, and that's a very soft anodized finish. The anodized means that it has a little bit more sparkle to it, and it sort of takes on the colors around it, and the champagne color is a very soft taupe.
Was clear anodized considered at all as far as relating to the windows of the existing building?
That would be possible. The main design feature up there really is the cornice that is atop of the penthouse, and we felt very strongly that needed to be consistent with the building, the limestone color of the building, to make it a contemporary addition but compatible with the existing color. So, and the way that the composition of that penthouse is put together, the windows are really integrated with the cornice, and so it was our choice to keep that all a consistent color. We'd certainly be willing to consider it.
No, that's just good to hear. That's all I have as far as questions.
Anybody else?
Do you have photographs? I didn't see them. Are there any historical photographs of the doors, of the front doors?
Of the
front doors of the property on the east side?
The construction photographs that we have don't include the doors. They didn't get quite that far. We were able to get to all of to 1923 construction photographs that show the the pattern and the shape of the limestone edge banding around the doors, but it didn't actually have the doors installed.
So this may be a stupid question. I'm big on that. But I didn't pick up on, are you doing this as a historic preservation project with tax credits?
We're not.
You're not, okay. Can I ask our historic preservation staff person to visit with us about this? When I first saw the project, I thought, that's really cool. I'm very excited about that. My first question was, what does Katie think about this?
And I'll say I didn't work on the staff report. I haven't studied their application closely. I've chatted with Laura and Lisa just very briefly, mostly on the rooftop addition. So I certainly didn't come with a prepared preservation position. I'm more just here in case there was a question. I personally feel like the design of the addition is very compatible with the building, but I'm concerned about how visible it's going to be. And that was my one major thing that I think all of us as staff discussed, was that we might not have seen as much documentation as we could have to really evaluate how much of that you're going to see and if it's the right proportion for an addition on such a historic building.
It's a very important building.
Yes.
And a very beautiful building. So I can understand. Okay. Anything else? How about the treatment of the doors, windows?
That's something that I haven't really discussed with the applicant, certainly, or with Lisa or Laura at all. I know as far as best practices in preservation, if we have a good idea of what the historic design was, then you would go back with that. But doing something that's a more modern interpretation and that's very clean and that's clearly differentiated from the building can sometimes be an appropriate solution as well. But it's not something that I've, prior to this meeting, really even looked into what they'd proposed.
Well, I hate to put you on the spot. So sorry about that, but I do appreciate you speaking
Sure.
to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions from you guys? Any questions or comments from the gallery?
I have one additional, just I guess a reiteration, if you don't mind. So when you were talking about the construction of the building and the load and putting that, there were two considerations that I heard. Maximizing your square footage on that rooftop addition, but also you mentioned something structurally about the placement of that. Can you just reiterate that?
Yeah, we've done a lot of structural investigation into the building to be able to determine where would be sort of the sweet spot of adding loads to the roof of the building in a way that they're not going to require bracing all the way down through the building, and can take advantage of the concrete columns that are there. So the concrete columns that are around the perimeter of the building are stout and solid and available to us. The beams that extend between those concrete columns and the concrete columns that are about 20 or 25 feet in from the edge are not as stout as we would have expected them to be from the 20s. And so we have studied an addition that was inset a few more feet from each side. And the end result of that from a structural perspective was it would require bracing on all of the beams at the roof level, as well as beams at the fifth floor level, and even some steel bracing on the beams and the columns down to the third floor. So the way that this building is put together is such that keeping the loads that the addition creates at the perimeter columns is the most advantageous way for us to fit it up there.
And what's the proposed use for the fifth floor?
Office.
Oh, too bad. Nice restaurant space.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything?
A couple more questions and a couple comments. The basement windows on the east facade, would those be, as far as new frame systems for those, would those be in line with the existing windows?
Yeah, those would be the anodized aluminum storefront system.
And then just so I understand, there's nothing going on with the west side of the north facade?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The renovation that we're proposing all the way through the building is limited to about the first two-thirds to the east. It's a condominium agreement with the National Memorial Museum, and they're in control of everything beyond that point.
The one comment I have, well, a couple, but first, I very much appreciate the effort to bring the main entry back to its original form. I think it's what you're showing here and what's in the historical photos is nicer than what's currently there. I also, the frameless stainless steel doors, I think those are appropriate. I've seen that approach used in many historical renovation projects. The finish on it, the polished, I mean, I can go either way on that. Having the clear anodized windows throughout the building, that contrast may be more appropriate to finish the stainless steel in closer line with the clear anodized.
With the aluminum windows?
And easier to maintain.
Yeah. And then lastly, with regard to the new construction on the top of the building, I very much appreciate the profiles of that parapet and how that relates to the cornice of the existing building. I'm okay with how close it is to the edges of the existing building. However, when you do that, you move away from it being an object on top of the building, and you move into a realm of you are part of the facade at this point. And looking at the existing building, there's a strong, obviously the classical style, there's a strong sense of rhythm and symmetry and balance. And when we look specifically at this image at the east facade, that symmetry is thrown off because of the perimeter and the extent of the addition on top. So I would be inclined to suggest revisiting the full perimeter of that addition and becoming more of a companion with the symmetry that's going on within the existing building facade.
I'm inclined to entertain that. There are a couple of factors that play into how that line on the south side was struck, and there is the existing gable form on the roof accepts that addition up to a certain point where we turn back, and so not that we can't complete the addition on that side, we certainly could. There was a desire from the Memorial Committee to reduce the visibility of the things that we are doing on the rooftop from the Memorial side to keep that view from down in the Memorial more pure, and we were inclined to respect that request. And the only other final thing is that there is an egress limitation of 50 feet from where we enter the stair. That would make that a little bit more challenging from a floor planning perspective. So those are the things that we were considering as we were making that choice. We did make the alignment of that edge of the penthouse happen with the furthest south column that's coming up. So I don't disagree with your recommendation, but we did have some additional ideas that were important to entertain.
And I think the view she was discussing was this view right here with the addition, and I wish they were closer. When I was looking at this view, and you can see where it fits in relationship to the peak of that gable, and that's why I went back here to try to figure out, well, it's going to be, it will be visible, but not as much as the east elevation is visible there because of how far it's set back. And I was just trying to point that out since the pictures aren't close to each other.
I actually just wanted to second Corey's comment. As a non-architect, that was the one thing that jumped out at me was just the lack of symmetry. I thought maybe it was my engineering brain being very literal, but I did want to just kind of add to that. I do, everything else is fantastic, but I just wanted to let Corey know he's not alone on that concern as well. So anything that can be done to maybe try to address that would be good to see.
I think one of the things that I kind of liked about the asymmetrical approach was that this is clearly an addition, and it is, I hope that no one ever thinks that this was the original part of the building. And so by having that a little, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's, the building is symmetrical and the addition is asymmetrical. And I guess another point is I stood on the sidewalk underneath this building and I couldn't see beyond, how you could see the addition beyond the original cornice, especially if it sits back a little bit, which is what it is.
Is that image what a person would actually see, or is that
From across the street.
so? That is, like the model is honoring exactly what somebody would see if they're
From how?
6 feet
like
tall and standing across the street.
50 feet?
Yeah, it'd be about 50 feet because it's a wide road.
It kind of is reminiscent to me about some of the buildings in D.C. that have restaurants. Bond, you might change your mind there, but that have restaurant additions on the top, and they're clearly additions, and they're clearly something special. So,
Well, I just want to add into this. I also think it would look more symmetrical if it was all the way across. And I thought you had actually done that on purpose out of respect from the memorial, and you set back. I mean, I thought that was part of the design idea, which I kind of thought was cool. So I like it either way.
okay. Anyone else from the gallery would like to speak on this? Or do we have a motion?
Well, I move that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District Zoning Ordinance as referenced in sections C and D of the staff report.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Your project is accepted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay. .512 North Broadway Avenue is the applicant signing in right now.
Yes. Sam is.
Laura, you wanted to talk about this real quick?
Sure. Let me pull this up. And, okay.
I have some additional exhibits to turn. Can I pass those out?
I don't know. Can't
Let me.
Okay. Line of sight. We have an existing painted brick building up on North Broadway, and we have some of the existing pictures there. The parking lot on the north side of the building is also part of this application, because there's landscaping involved with it. This is also a request for a rooftop glass addition. And what he handed out that I looked at was a line of sight from across the street, which this project is a little different in that it is also in Automobile Alley. And the Automobile Alley guidelines talks about reducing the view of the rooftop additions from across the street. It also talks about having the rooftop addition be set back at least one bay, and one bay would be roughly in here. And when we get to the rendering, you'll see they actually did push it back after we started talking about this project. We have in the area, here's the subject building, and we also have some other historic structures in the area, just to point out. So let me get down to the project. Okay. So here's the demarcation of the one bay in the building, so you can see that the building is set back at least one bay. We've had an adjustment in the material that they were proposing to address a comment that we received, and we have a representative from the Automobile Alley Committee here that might be speaking to this. I'm not really sure if he was going to, but we did receive some comments from him on this project. What you're looking at, the proposal includes painting the brick. It's already painted. Right now it's white, and the concrete's already painted, which is the support columns. And so their proposal is for, instead of it all being white, actually the red and white scheme, which would, the supports then show up a little better. The one comment that I'll point out that staff had an issue with dealt with the lights, and the applicant has heard this from me. There are currently some lights that are, we don't think that they're original, we don't know, but given what they look like, they were probably added at some point. What's being requested, the size of them, 4 feet. I mean, they're very, very large. They're glass. They stick out, as you can see. They're gas, which they could have originally had gas lights. But we're just concerned with the appearance of those, and we pass that on to the applicant. They are proposing a new main entry door. The current one was a single door. The proposal is to put a double door in that opening. They're also proposing to add this canopy, flat metal canopy. I don't know if it originally had one or not, but there are buildings of the same era that have similar type canopies added to them. So you can see there's also a parking lot on the south side of it that is not part of this project, correct?
No.
Correct. And then on the other side of that parking lot is red, if you're from the restaurant, if you're familiar with that area. And so the proposal also includes adding some landscaping to this parking lot, which is great, because right now there's nothing, as well as putting a dumpster enclosure, because right now there is no dumpster enclosure, and so the dumpsters are just back in the back. So, and it is going to be, it will match the building. Let me get to the elevations. The back of the building, they're proposing, there's 2 overhead doors right now that when you look at them, given the age, they probably weren't the original overhead doors. They're proposing to block in the southernmost one and put a new one in this area right here. The lower level has historically been used for parking, which is what they want to continue using that for. The other thing I want to point out is you can see where the current windows are, and I can go back to those pictures. The other drawings are where they're proposing to either enlarge those windows or add windows. And while in looking at the building, they weren't there originally, when you look at other buildings from that era, they're windows that you would have expected to see, but there were buildings on the sides of this building, so you wouldn't have had the windows there. They're proposing to replace the existing windows that are there, and even if they're ones that they're leaving the same size and installing similar look windows. So with that, and then we have the dumpster enclosure, which is going to be masonry. It's going to open off the alley. And I'm just going to go back to the renderings and let
Sam
the
Gresham,
applicant.
architect on the building. I have sent, the exhibits I've presented to you are a new light fixture. We're in the hands of a decorator who picked that fixture. I hated it. Frank, I'm telling you the truth. So she picked the second one, which is a little more traditional.
Okay, so you're changing the light fixture?
Changing the light fixture. We're not proposing that 4-foot giant. This is a 24-inch light fixture that you have examples of, which I passed around as exhibits, additional exhibits. Is it possible to?
Was there something other than this?
I'm sorry, they have it. I apologize for not giving it to you, but.
Laura, it looks like that. You can have it.
It's 24-inch. I don't have the spec on it. I'm sorry. I just asked how tall it was.
Okay.
I can get that. And the issue of the windows, they're aluminum, extruded, simulated divided light. The pattern of the window, mutton bars match that of the original windows on the back of the building. We only have the casement windows that are existing are all the way up to the bottom of the ceiling in spaces where in any of the floors where they exist, ductwork actually crosses in front of them. So the windows that are currently there on both the north and south sides have no function with respect to light in the building, because the ductwork will obliterate those. Our intention is to bring them down long using, of course, the same opening, but extending that opening down so the light actually reaches the inside of the space. Our purpose in all of this is to adapt this for modern use. The buildings are hugely, 50 feet wide and 140 feet deep. They have no light, no natural light in them at all. And I think it's an essential part of a work environment that is agreeable and civilized to have windows into those spaces. And the owner was very intent on requesting that improvement. The original north side of the building, there was a two-story, I'm told, a two-story building there that had previously, and none of these exteriors were designed to be seen. They're not the character-defining features on this building. The front facade obviously is, and because of that, our purpose was to stay back a full 28 feet with our rooftop addition and keep the height of it down so that, as you can see the sight line, from the adjacent side of the right-of-way, we keep it back a great deal further. It doesn't really impact the historic character-defining facade of the front of the building. And we were careful about that. Rand Elliott, of course, did all the work on this for a previous owner, and his knowledge of this building far exceeds mine. He owned the building for years and years, so his understanding of all this, and I love his designs. It's just that we have call it a more public use of this building. Our elevator had to pull forward, our stairwell had to pull forward. We have a common lobby. A bank is on the first floor, and there are 3 floors of offices above that. And for that reason, we needed a common means of access, which created what I think is probably the only feature that has the solid siding on it in the front of our building at the rooftop level. I apologize. I feel like I'm skipping around. Is there anything I can?
Any questions from the committee?
Go ahead. So I don't know if it printed out. I don't know if the print kind of changed the color, but what is that? What is that color that's shown on that image?
Red.
No, I mean on the addition.
The addition it's a Lucabond. It's a gray. I passed a sample out, and actually that's not quite the right color. It's the only sample I had on my shelves, but it's a composite metal paneling. It's smooth. There it is.
So you're referring to the fact this color definitely doesn't look like the rendering? Is that?
Well, I'm a little bit colorblind, but it looks like it has maybe a little bit of a blue or a purple hue in the print.
It's coming.
Okay. Well, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, in my printed version, it had that hue.
It looks a bit dark. Of course, the shadow side is what you see in that illustration. The color is in the packet, and it's a silvery. I don't know I should read it. I don't remember the color name.
That?
That one, I can't read it. It's that color, so.
Could you speak to the scope of work on the west facade as it relates to the existing masonry as well as the new storefront?
We are doing nothing on the west facade.
The alley? The window?
You're speaking of the
street
canopy
facade.
and the glass. Pardon me?
Oh, the
so
west, I'm
you're
sorry, the street facade. The canopy, the lights, the new storefront window system,
Yeah.
the new
Just
doors.
Starting with the masonry.
Masonry's not changing. We have nothing on the west facade that is being altered. We'll repoint masonry that's maybe in need of repointing.
Yeah, there are, that's what I observed, seeing that there were some locations that could use some TLC.
No alteration to that facade, other than just filling in the storefront glass with new glass. The glazing is.
And then as far as the tint or color of that glazing?
It's a smoked glass. It's dark. It's intended to be in full sunlight. It's a mirror. It looks like just like that. It's an insulated, low-E, tempered glass panel inside the existing frames. So what you see is really it's actually the current condition, I think, of what glass is there now. It's a western exposure, so it's going to be pretty brutal if it doesn't have any kind of.
And so the intent is to match the
Yes.
glazing that's currently there?
Yes.
And
It's
then-
a non-historic glazing. Excuse me.
And then just out of curiosity, there's one window on the north facade that remains the half height. Is there a reason for that?
I think that's
Right
in
there.
a stairwell, or it's inside. I don't remember where that space is, but yeah, the purpose of windows where they're added is to provide light to office space where offices are. There was no point. We retain an existing window. Our windows appear the same, look the same as the existing windows. Their patterns match.
Yeah, I think it's the stairwell, that's why I was flipping through to the
They
floor plan.
don't look like casement windows, though. They don't look like.
Well, they are casement windows, but they don't look like the steel casements, right?
They don't look like
the MUN
the
pattern.
existing steel casement.
Right. Well, the frames are heavier on the side. So.
But they're not ones that open, correct?
What?
They're not operational.
Some of them are.
Oh, some of them are going to
Yes.
be operational, okay.
I think one of the things that concerns me about, and I know that I'm probably a weirdo when it comes to this one, but I really would like to see all of those lots filled in along Broadway, and I'm wondering if adding all those windows will make it less likely that someone will come along and build a building right next to it like it used to be.
I will tell you on the south, and I've had some correspondence with Rand on this. He owns the lot to the south, and we're asking Board of Appeals to approve allowing those windows on the side because we're on a lot line. But it doesn't preclude him from being able to build another building there if he ever chose to do that. Those windows go away. And that would be true on the north side because I think the economic benefit of having the land, and call it, we're talking really now only of its current condition. But I think ultimately all those lots will be filled in. There's a kind of energy in this real estate development here in the city. I think the city's reached a tipping point where things are happening. And the owner here, we actually discussed a parking garage on the side in an effort to try to capture both the basement and this rooftop as occupied space, well, office space with additional parking, and he felt like he could make use of all of it. You've got a very low-density use of that bank to the north, and I'm fortunate to have a very wealthy owner here. The guy's got a lot of money. He was going to buy that bank. It's apparently for sale, and the purpose of purchasing it was to relocate the bank that's going to occupy the first floor in that space. But in reference to building a building there, he did have an intention, future intention, of building something on the side. The windows are an important improvement now, and he says he'd like to have them. If you said you didn't want me to have windows there at all, he'd probably live with that. So
Okay.
If I might, given that he just passed out some additional information but doesn't have all the specs as far as the lighting goes, staff recommended that there be a condition, and I still recommend that condition stay in there, which is an alternate light fixture be considered and brought back to staff for review. That way he can bring me that additional information so we can.
Right. You have no idea how big that fixture
Well,
is?
he said it was
or anything
24
like
inches,
that?
but I don't know how far it sticks out from the wall, and
Be nice to have a spec on it.
yes.
Okay.
So I would recommend that you keep that condition in there.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? No. Is there, do we want to, does Automobile Alley want to express any concerns about this? No?
No.
Do we feel like we have explored the elevations thoroughly? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that an alternate light fixture be brought to the staff for review.
Is there a second? Okay. That was a Corey and Nathaniel motion. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to...
So our next item, going back to item A, is 21 and 25 Northwest 7th Street. Is the applicant present?
Dave Ledbetter, 2612 Drakestone. Nick Faulkner, developer.
At your last meeting, the committee was requesting more architectural dimension type drawings, which were provided to you in your packet. And I think some additional information, the small space, there was discussion about the concern over the lower level space since it was so small and the viability of that space. And so they're ready to discuss that with you.
Right. We've been in discussion with a potential tenant on the first floor, and we're quite willing to increase the size of the first floor and double the space. I think that was Corey's main objection on the first floor. Yes, I think you were objecting to the small size of the level 1. I think you were concerned about the viability of the retail space. Okay, we are willing to increase the size of the space, to double it.
Well, I appreciate you bringing architectural drawings to us as far as the elevations are concerned. It did kind of reiterate my concerns about the actual viability of providing structure within those very small spaces. And I do want to let you know if when you actually get into construction documents, if you start seeing the need to increase the spaces where you've got metal framework at the rooftop and you need more space to provide structure, we need to see that again.
Okay, we're quite willing to do that, but I think we're fairly confident we can accomplish our needs within the included space.
Any other comments? Nathaniel has not had a chance to see this before. Do you have any questions?
No, I did get a chance to review it before this meeting, but yeah, I don't have any particular questions.
Would you like him to run through this? Just kind of the overall site plan and what you're planning to do with the building? Just
Sure, yeah, maybe just a brief summary. Great, thank you.
Would you mind doing that?
Sure. Start putting up the...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Where do you want to start with?
You want just...
Okay, start with level 1. That's the entry from the south side of the street adjacent to the alley. We have the shaded spot was the one that concerned, and basically it's one 40-foot container, which is 8 feet by 40 feet. We're willing to increase that size to 2 spaces, and as I said, we've had a retail tenant quite interested in that particular space, and the size is, quite appropriate for his needs.
Are you saying you're going to increase it? Whoops.
Yes. We plan on increasing double the size of the containers.
Double the depth?
Double depth?
Okay, yeah, that went away fast. Okay, so you're adding another one back this way. Correct. Oh, okay, thank you.
You want to pass it around?
Yes, I will.
So just for Nathaniel's benefit, one of the things that we first asked is that we wanted to see more relationship with the street, because when we first got this, we didn't really have a lot of windows in the first floor space, and most of the space was on the second floor. So they provided that last
Yes,
time.
our first presentation had no engagement in the first level whatsoever.
Most of this space is located above grade.
Yeah, and let me just go back. This right now, grade literally is the rooftops of these vehicles, just for, you were all here, for our new member. And they're making use of this parcel as well as of this parcel that's right here, where there used to be structures, and so there's some remnant left of those structures. And they're proposing to cut that down to set the storage container in so that it becomes street level, which was a lot of the discussion from the original. And you can see that right here, where the grade is actually up here on that site currently. Okay, so you're going to keep...
Okay. Level 2, which is the main level, access to level 2 from the south side is up through a set of stairs and a chair lift. It's adjacent to the entry to the level 1. And then as you walk up through the entry of that, we have an open courtyard in the center, and additional stairways up to level 3. The pod on the southwest corner of this project is our food service pod, which we there. This double 20-foot pod to the northeast quadrant is the food service production. No, I'm sorry, right there, yes. The one in the southwest quadrant, which is a 20 by 8-foot pod, is a storage pod for the food service. The one that she's on right now is a restaurant pod, and the one directly north of that is our quick service, which we'd have access to the courtyard directly to the north. And we have an open courtyard to the north, and the 2 double 40-foot containers there are for short-term residential stays. The lower level, which is adjacent piece of property, is basically a food service court. We have a restaurant pod, 1 40-foot food service pod, and spaces for 2 food trucks and upper level seating. Level 3 on the northeast quadrant is continuation of the residential, and that makes that little L bracket into there. Then I have an open space outside which services the residential. The center element is mainly for mechanical use. And then you have a passageway that goes through there to open another court deck, and a small office space located to the south side, which has faces toward the street. For dumpster enclosure, we're using the same architectural panels as we're using to express various elements of the rest of the project.
And so what they talked about adding another container on the first floor level,
Yeah, it doesn't.
you won't actually see it in any of the renderings because it's underneath and totally behind.
So basically, this is kind of like a restaurant venue and a food truck court, some office.
Pretty much, yes.
So,
Mentioned, did I hear you mention some living area as well, or?
Correct.
Okay, and so small apartments and kind of the back portion of that property?
Right, the back
this
L
way.
situation right
This
there, yes.
I see.
And that's the second level, right? That's where you pick that up? Okay.
and they're playing off of being near the railroad tracks.
Good, thank you.
So is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this?
So I have questions.
Okay, that's good.
So this set of plans, as it's progressed, has made me appreciate the value of an architect. This set of plans in particular makes me appreciate the value of a civil engineer, which I wish I could see some spot elevations to know how this works. But my real questions are, these pods, you've got different sizes. Do you get them in different sizes, or do you cut them in half?
International containers come in actually come in these sizes. The two major sizes are 19 foot 10 and a half, which is considered 20 foot by 8 foot by 9 foot 6. The standard international one that you see on most ships or railroad cars are 40 feet by 8 feet by 9 foot 6. And these units are used in many places across the country for various venues.
So do you just unload them and put them on the ground, or do you have a footing, or?
No, there's lots of work that you do to them before you put them in place.
So that's all?
It's all engineered, yes.
They have to get building permits. They have to deal with development services and get building permits, and just like their stick building. So it's, I think, didn't you say you do piers or something that support them? And so it's just not unloading them, sitting them on the ground, and they're done.
That's the indication you get when you look at this set of plans.
Okay.
Just a clarification, the front yard fence on the east lot.
The one that there's a note, and that, hang on a minute, let me flip down there. The one that has this note?
Yes.
Yes.
That is going to be, we're not considering that right now.
Correct. It's being considered at a later date.
Okay. And then another clarification on the material legend relative to the elevations. I just want to confirm that A and B are actually supposed to be swapped.
The containers are all painted in the Santa Fe Railroad brown.
Okay, so the containers would be labeled A in the elevations.
Correct.
Okay, so they should be swapped. Okay. And then so finish B, the exterior metal finish, in some locations that's like the front canopy. And
Right.
then
All the architectural metals should be expressed in a flat black finish.
And then that includes the storefront systems, the window systems that are included by the main entry?
Yes. We have examples.
And it's pre-finished?
Yes.
Okay. Lastly, could you talk about the reasoning behind the amount of stucco that's on the facade?
East facade, that's a lot line. We have to have a 2-hour rated facade, an element. And so basically we have to have something there that creates a 2-hour separation.
Okay, so is that right here? Is that what you're talking about? there?
No, well, actually, that's two. It's the 2-hour separation
Oh,
because
but
that's
here.
the additional lot line too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole east facade, everything that's shown in green, as well as everything that's shown in black, is stucco.
Correct.
Do we have any, do we have a motion? Have any more questions or an emotion, or what do you guys want to do?
Can I clarify something?
Sure.
That you said about material A and B. Did you say it's swapped on something? Is that what I ended up hearing you say?
Yeah, the way I'm
Okay.
reading the schedule versus the elevations,
Okay. Gotcha. I just
So-
wanted to clarify that.
yeah, A and B, either the lettering and the
Yes.
legend need to be swapped, or the notations on the elevations need to be.
Yeah, to me, the legend would be the easiest place to swap it.
I just wanted to make sure that everything was still consistent with
You're correct.
what's being shown.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Laura? Okay, do we have a motion?
When you make motions, do you always read the whole thing?
Generally,
Okay.
just to provide some substance.
All right. I move approval of the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. That was Nathaniel and Connie. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Thanks for working with us. And do remember, if you...
We'll be back.
If and when you start making changes, please come back. Okay. The next item is 1122 North Broadway. I know the applicant is present. We'll start with you guys in just a second. Laura, do you want to...
Subsequent to the last meeting, there has been some changes to the proposal that were provided, so they obviously were listening to staff, to comments from other committees.
Auto
Alley, and to your comments. And the committee's comments at the last meeting that we summarized in the staff report was you were suggesting more screening at the parking garage, because as you know, it's to the north and it was fairly open, or further integrating it in the main building, changing any sloped roof lines to flat, and that was a really big one, and they have done that, and reviewing the design with adjacent property owners. You might recall we had an adjacent property owner to the east that spoke with a concern because he has a one-story building, and he's across the alley from them. And I believe they did actually meet with that property owner. So the revised design addresses many of the comments that we received at the last meeting, and there still is quite a bit in here. So I'm just going to read what the staff recommendation is, because we do have some recommended conditions. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions: that the fourth floor balconies on the north and the west sides of the building be adjusted further away from the blade sign by one structural bay. The second floor balcony on the north side be eliminated. An alternative brick color be considered and brought back to the committee for review. The brick color itself is one that is specifically referenced in the Automobile Alley Guidelines, as discussed at your last meeting. And the applicant obtains a determination from the Public Works Director that no traffic hazard would be created by the proposed encroachment into the site distance triangle, and that the project is therefore exempt from the requirement. We run into this since we require new buildings to be at or within 10 feet of the property line, and when you're on a corner, there's a 25-foot sight distance triangle, which definitely impacts a lot of buildings. Most of the time, Public Works Director finds that it's not an issue. However, what came up in, let me see where this is at. What came up in this case is the issue that when you go north of the site, it widens out. So it literally, the other corner of that intersection is set further to the east. And so we've had some preliminary comments that they do have an issue with that. And so the applicant needs to resolve that with the Public Works Department, and then provide us with the results of that, because that can definitely impact the location of the building on the corner.
So
I'm trying
we're
to...
not having to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment or any other board for...
Not at the moment.
Site triangle?
Not at the moment, because the way the ordinance is worded, the Public Works Director in, I think, all of our design districts but one, has the ability to say that's not a problem and you don't have to get a variance. Because there's an exemption in there that, of the design districts, that allows the Public Works Director to make the determination so that they don't have to get a variance if he feels that there's not a problem.
What's the design district that...
I think it's Scenic River, and because Scenic River was the last one, and I'm thinking it might have been something that got overlooked when they added Scenic River.
Okay.
So,
Laura, if I can just, on the site triangle issue, we've placed half a dozen calls in the month of May to Mr. Chai, and trying to, we've sent him exhibits on the situation, and we're wanting to meet with him and talk to him about it. We're also willing to adjust the curb on the north side of Park Place, if necessary, to kind of bring it out in line with the south curb of Park Place. So, but, we're trying to meet with him, and there's been no communication coming back to us yet. So, but obviously, we're going to follow through with that.
so this is where we run into it. And it's kind of a contradiction in what we want the buildings at the property line. But then we run into this problem, and obviously we are concerned about traffic safety. So we do have to defer to the traffic people.
So I wonder if, isn't 11th Street there only a block long? Aren't they stopping it at the...
Well, Park Place is going to be dead-ended due to the noise study.
Park Place, yeah.
Park Place, because of
Is
the
that
railroad
the same
track.
as 11th Street?
No, 11th Street is
11th
farther
is the
north.
next one to the north.
So it's really far up there.
It's the next block.
Yeah. Okay, but isn't it going to be just like a block long at this building, this
Yes.
street?
Yes, it just goes to the east about a block at the most and terminates in a cul-de-sac. There'll be very little traffic. There's the lawyer's office, Mr. Sweet's office, just to the east of the alley, and a couple other little office buildings on that end of the block, or that end of the street.
Does that other north-south road connect to it, the one that kind of runs up into the...
There's a north-south. It's also called, I think, Broadway Drive.
Yeah.
And
that's just east of this.
Yeah.
it runs north, almost in line with our driveway, running
Yes.
up north. Yeah.
Toward the museums.
So 11th Street isn't actually even a street on this side,
Well, let me go back here.
right?
Okay, you're looking at this one? Park, 11th Street
Is a
is 11th Street, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that was vacated.
Yeah, it looks like it's been vacated.
I think the city closed the easement, but this is the museum's property. They have this.
Okay, so, my confusion.
No problem.
Nathaniel has not been privy to all of this? How much information would you like? Because we've all heard this project before.
I can just breeze through it very fast if Mr. Harding
do
would
that?
like that.
We could do that, and
Whatever the committee wants.
And I saw the items for further consideration, so, and you already addressed the corner issue, but maybe just touch on the other ones that were listed along the way.
Yes, sir. Well, again, we consider the building to be an important new building to Automobile Alley, and the city's changing quite a bit, a lot of housing in the area, Deep Deuce, Plaza District, Midtown, and around, and so the building is a mixed-use building. It's not an office building, it's not a retail building, it's mixed use. We expect to have a restaurant on the ground floor. We have plenty of room for tables and chairs out on the street. We follow the Oklahoma City's downtown framework document for how the sidewalk is developed. We've been listening to the different groups, Automobile Alley. We've met 3 or 4 times now with city planning, 3 times with plan review, and other groups as we can. And so the building is meant to be a building for services for the area, for the amount of people that are now living in the downtown area. Even the Brookings Institution group, they're studying Automobile Alley, and on May 3rd they published a article in the Journal Record, and it was mentioning some of the weaknesses in Automobile Alley. The weaknesses that the Brookings Institute pointed out is exactly what this building is trying to deliver to Automobile Alley. And so we have been listening, and we're paying attention. The owner of the building and the land has a business right across the street. He's putting in his private money into Automobile Alley, which hadn't happened for a decade or so. So anyway, we've looked at the historical issues of the site, and we've come back after the last meeting and designed a blade sign for the corner of the site. And we did that utilizing some of the graphics that we've been able to find that came from Marlin Oil Company. And E.W. Marlin owned the property, had a service station on the property back in the 20s. We feel like the importance of this site goes back to the 20s and not necessarily the 1956 Johnny's Conoco, although Marlin teamed up with Continental Oil, and the logo, as you can see at the bottom of the blade sign, is where Conoco got their logo. So at any rate, we've paid attention to the historical importance of the site, and we came back, we deleted, let me just get that for you because this is important. After some issues that the committee had on various items like balconies, and the staff report wants us to cut back even more, we have since the last meeting deleted over 123 lineal feet of balcony has been deleted from this project. So we're listening to that. There was some concern previous about concrete coatings and the use of brick. We've deleted over 1,000 square feet of concrete coating and replaced it with 1,031 square feet of more brick on the building. We've as Laura said, we paid attention to Mr. Sweet's concerns about the northeast corner of the building. So we and others had concerns over the screening of the parking structure on the east part of this project. We had developed the northeast corner with the screening and added brick around on the east side. At least 20 feet along the east side now has brick on it facing away from Broadway, but it faces Mr. Sweet's building. So we're trying to address that corner, the northeast corner of the project. And after other discussions and paying attention to comments being said about the north facade, we've now since taken the screening all the way across the north facade, as you can see in your packets, that cover the parking portion of the project. Now, what I'd like to now address is, in the original staff report, there was no mention about brick color. In the second staff report, it has now shown up as an issue. And so we were surprised to see that. And so because this building's important to our client, and we want you to look favorably on our project, and we would like an affirmative decision from the council, the committee this morning, we have gone now to change the brick color on the building. If it's all right, Laura, can I hand out these?
Sure. Can I have one of them?
So what you have in your hand is what's called an Endicott iron spot brick. It's a very nice brick. It's one I've used on Automobile Alley before. Some of you all might remember a councilman a while back named Mark Schwartz. He had a law office just south of 6th Street on Automobile Alley, and that brick is used on his building. It's now known as the Bow and Arrow Boutique. So that brick is a very nice quality brick. I would say most architects, know of Endicott iron spot and would seem favorable. So we had a meeting with a client, and we just came to an agreement to change the brick from the black onyx that's in the staff report because of their objection to the black brick, and recommending that you all approve us using this Endicott brick.
Thanks, Haven. Any questions right now for the applicant?
Yes, I just have a few questions. On the, what material are, I may have missed this, what material are the little decorative elements across the top here, the little reference to the Marlin sign? And
Okay, thank you for asking the question. As you can see, and if you were comparing the design from before, we had wrought iron railing at the top roof terrace.
Right.
There were comments made in the last presentation or the last meeting that a straight line roof was desirable. So we took out the wrought iron railing, we took brick all the way across, and now those accents are cut stone, or cast stone.
They are cast.
Cast stone. And we have a cast stone cap, and we believe that that articulation up there is fitting for Automobile Alley. And as Laura already said, we deleted the hip roof that we had up on the rooftop terrace.
Okay.
We've also, in deleting the the third floor balcony at the corner to allow us to put the blade sign in, that set the glazing, the glass storefront back into the building. There was some concern about the amount of glass out towards the facade. So you can see in the picture there that the glass has been inset now and brick put in front of it.
While we're on this one, I think it would help. I'm just going to point out some things. I read what staff recommendation is, but seeing its impact on the building, it can paint a different picture. Fourth floor balconies on the north and west side of the building adjusted further away from the blade sign by one structural bay. So we're talking about this here. So back one bay would be here. Okay.
Because it does look like it's sitting right on top of the blade sign.
The blade sign's meant to be more integral than just hanging off the building. It's intentional to be at the bottom side of the walkway there.
And that is also here on the north side. Eliminate that. It's harder to see from this one, but second floor balcony on the north be eliminated. So it's here, I think. I have a harder time
Well,
seeing that.
that's where it is, but we don't understand that comment whatsoever because it has zero impact.
Well, one of the things I noticed about the second floor balconies is they look like, it really kind of distracts from kind of the nice awning that is there and makes it look like it's part of the awning. I think that's weird. I think it would be far better not to have balconies on that second floor.
And then the last one I'd point out deals with the brick, but he's provided a different brick for consideration.
But you're still proposing the anodized aluminum storefronts?
We don't have any anodized aluminum storefronts on the project. We never have.
What is
Staff has been in error in their write-up. They say clear anodized aluminum storefronts. We don't have that. I never have.
What do you have?
It's painted, it's a bluish gray painted storefront color.
Okay. Oh, can we see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So is it pre-finished or is it?
Yes, that's Conair fluoropolymer finish.
Well, that's good to know.
And as you know, there's green and red and white, and cream and black, and a lot of different colors of storefront along Automobile Alley.
Anything else?
A couple of general comments is, so I assume you've been keeping up with the Oklahoma Contemporary facility that's going to be constructed. I think they'll be your neighbor, and so...
Actually, we've reached out to them, and we'd like to be a good neighbor with them. Yes, sir.
And so you've had positive feedback, and you feel like that these buildings will
yes,
go
sir.
together, for lack of a better word, essentially?
A gentleman on our team has actually had some communications with them. I haven't personally, but the feedback coming back has been very positive.
And then also, you're keeping up with the streetcar development, and you're pleased with where the stop is going to be relative to...
Yes, sir. They're proposing a stop that's just north of us, and the issue on the site triangle and how the north side of Park Place at Broadway might be refashioned, to take care of the site triangle, that could be part of how that all works with the streetcar and the stop that's a little farther north of us. So that'd be something we would want to participate with and help out with, and be a part of a solution there. We're also upgrading the stormwater inlets on Park Place that are all silted in now. The site has contamination. Our client has spent a lot of money in soil investigation because of the history of service centers there. He was led to believe that the site was cleaned up when he bought it. He's paid out a lot of money to Terracon and to Talon LPE, and we found that there's contamination on the site. And so there's going to be an expense to clean that up. So as I said before, Mr. Muhammad has his business there. He's not going anywhere. He's not building a building to flip. He's going to own it for a long time, and he wants to be a good neighbor to Automobile Alley, to clean up the site as it is now, to get rid of the environmental contamination and all of that. So we're doing everything we can.
So any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, I was just curious about the blade sign. Does that carry on the neon that's going on Automobile Alley?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and Scott is my project architect, and we've already got bids on the signs and how it's attached, so we can work with the structural engineer and the different lighting and so on. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have someone from Automobile Alley to speak?
Good afternoon. Rand Elliott, representing the Automobile Alley Design Committee. When we go through discussions like this, I think it's always important to recognize why we're doing what we're doing along the way. And a couple of things I think might be helpful for Nathaniel, who is new to this, to understand a little bit of guidelines behind it. Automobile Alley is successful because of the guidelines that are in place. They've been in place for 20 years. And the businesses that are here in Automobile Alley are here because of the fact that it has guidelines and it has character, and that it has been maintained and put in place and carried forward. I think clearly what we find happening as Oklahoma City changes, which we're all excited about, is that if in fact we chose to change something every time someone new came into the neighborhood, we wouldn't have Automobile Alley. We'd have the suburbs. That's not what Automobile Alley is. It is not the suburbs. It is a revered location and neighborhood within downtown that is respected, and the businesses that are there are those that want to be there. So if you imagine the fact that we've spent 20-plus years trying to maintain this character, it's the reason why we are here and speaking our mind in terms of trying to maintain that, because we think it's important as it goes forward. I think the steps to change the brick are huge and much appreciated. The balconies reduction, if it were up to the Automobile Alley group, there would be no balconies on this building. They would be gone. That would cause redesign and so forth, which I think would be a valuable exercise, but that is the position of this particular committee. We've still not talked about the fact that this building increases adjacent to the other buildings greater than 25%, which mentions very clearly in the Automobile Alley guidelines. So they have gone a long ways to meet the criteria. They've not gone far enough, in our opinion, to maintain and be a part of what makes Automobile Alley great. That's a disappointment. And so we would like for you to give that some serious consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have of me.
Any questions? Thanks for speaking.
Thank you.
Any other?
The project is just a few feet over the minimum height required by the zoning regulations of Oklahoma City. And there is a difference between what Automobile Alley wants and what the zoning calls for. And also, the downtown design framework, as far as density is concerned, supports our design.
Right. Nathaniel, our ordinance states that we have a 3-story minimum.
And the 25%, that's basically the adjacent building can't be more than 25% higher, so the one next to it's 1 story.
So it could only be a story and a half.
A story and a, yes.
Quarter.
I assume, logically, you round that up, I guess, and say 2 stories. Is that, but then that's the 2 is less than the
But if it
3.
were next to, say, the Cardinal building, it could be almost, 5 stories? So.
The building to our south, as you can see in this image, is just a garage with an overhead door. So really no consequence. And we would expect, as already mentioned earlier in the meeting today, to have more buildings fill in Automobile Alley that are more appropriate to the CBD. Also, I'd like to say that some of the comments made about retail on upper floors are in error. We expect window shoppers maybe to walk along a sidewalk, but we're expecting destination commercial on the upper floors. If fourth floor, Mr. Harding is planned for a nice restaurant. We already have a tenant that wants to take a whole floor on either the second or third floor. So leasing these floors is, and we're well on our way, and that's not going to be an issue for us. With the comments that we're getting in that regard for the balconies and the walkways up above are all 100% positive. And what we didn't have time to talk about today, but did last time, was the interaction of this building with the street and being able to see the downtown skyline, the night sky, the sunsets, activity on Automobile Alley itself. So we feel very strongly that the building work with the street instead of close its doors to the street.
What's the depth of the balcony? What's on the, especially on the fourth floor?
Most of them are 6 feet, except for the fourth floor. There's some 6 foot and some 12 foot, mainly on the north side, and the glass sits way back. The extension of the balcony and fits the encroachment building code requirements for the city.
I wonder, how does that blade sign scale in comparison to other blade signs on the street? Fran, do you know? It's the same? It's consistent. It's consistent. Well, I appreciate a couple of things that you've done. I appreciate the screening on the parking garage. I appreciate the fact that you've taken largely taken the railing off of the top, the roof, and replaced it with a brick parapet. And I do appreciate the fact that you've taken off a lot of the balconies, but I do feel like there's more work to be done. That's my opinion. I really would like you to reconsider the balconies sitting right on, that actually walk out onto the awnings. It just seems like contrast in use, and definitely not in character with the rest of the area, even though I hear you say you kind of want to be out of character in a way.
Well, we're not necessarily out of character. We want 2 tops out there, small tables and chairs where people spend time, be able to visit, relax, things like that, and having those little balconies on the second floor, which have to be shorter. They're only 4 feet out because of encroachment building code requirements, and they're below 15 feet. So, but that gives a chance for those shop owners, and we may have some offices. If I had my architectural firm in there, I'd love to be able to go outside and sit, and we have a lot of good weather days. So, as I said before, the comments so far on leasing have been positive about the outdoor interaction, and it allows a better use of the building space and that sort of thing. It's more efficient.
In last month's meeting, I made a number of comments and considerations, and for the most part, I still maintain a lot of those opinions.
Can you review those?
Yes, yeah. First, touching on the height of the building relative to the building to the south. Personally, I don't feel that that's as much a concern. The Buick building on the west side of Broadway shares a similar scale. That being said, the location of this site, because it's at the north end of Automobile Alley, and it represents something of a gateway to that district, and the site itself, I feel, has a responsibility to be very much within character of what's established in Automobile Alley as a way of being a gateway to the district coming from the north. I think a lot of the moves that have been made between last month and this month are in the right direction in getting there. I do agree that I think there's still more work that needs to be done. The balconies, as I understand the functional desire for those and how they play into the program within the building, architecturally, I do not feel that they are in character with what's established in Automobile Alley.
This is Safdar Muhammad.
Sure. Hello.
Hi, my name is Safdar Muhammad, and I've been present here for the last 2 meetings, and finally I decided to say something. Okay, for all of you I need to ask a couple of questions. For example, I mean, whatever is going on right here, whatever I'm listening, actually, you know, it's just frustrating. The reason I'm saying it, because if you go over there on that corner and look at it, if you pass by or drive by, does it look right? I mean, that corner looks terrible. It looks terrible. If you pass by, you know, everybody is saying that it's a gateway to the Automobile Alley. If somebody pass by over there and look at it, it is disgusting. It looks disgusting. And I'm the one who has a business across the street and looks at it every day, almost 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, and I never liked it. And finally, I decided to do something with that corner. So as I did, when I built that station over there, like 13 years ago, because even that time, there were not so many activities going on in Automobile Alley. And I took a risk. And I bought those a couple of, 3 veggies and try to do something over there. And at that time, I invested quite a bit of money. And because I wanted to do something over there with Automobile Alley, because Automobile Alley was lacking that kind of services I provided like 13 years ago. And then I had this location, this spot, and I always was thinking, what should I do? It does not look right. You know, then my realtor over the sitting with Chad Elmore, we were always back and forth. What should we do? How we can address this corner and to make it look good for the Automobile Alley, for the downtown, and for the community. And we've been working on this project almost for 2 years. It is not just 1 week or 2 weeks. You know, how we can address this corner and make it like economical. You know, if I'm going to invest like millions of dollars, it should bring me revenue as well to off-cost the cost and something. And also, we had everything in our mind how we can address this corner according to the rules and regulation and all that stuff. Keeping that in mind, and you know, I hired, Mr. Haven to do all the architectural work, and we went back and forth how we can address it. And then, you know, there was something, you know, we presented our last meeting over here, the rendering and stuff. And since then, since I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, the only thing I was looking at it just from business point of view. How we can bring more businesses in the city, how it's going to address the needs of the community, how that corner is going to look more prettier and beautiful so people can look at it and say, oh, yes, you know, somebody has done a good job. And it's not we are doing that project to offend anybody or do anything wrong. My thoughts were at that time, even this time, to do something for the city, to do something, to bring, something where businesses can flourish, where a community can more benefit from, and we have more inviting buildings, we have more business, where people can more interact and stuff like this. And that's how we drew this kind of project. And then when we presented that project and these comments and some issues came along, and we've been trying our best to keep up with those. In the beginning, was not fond of a lot of breaks and stuff. I just, when I go to New York, when I go to some other cities, there are different kinds of buildings, and it's not that I'm wearing a suit, he's wearing a suit. If I'm wearing a suit, he's wearing something, people are more inclined to see the difference and stuff like this. So that's what happened, when it was, for example, I wanted more granite and some other material on the building, and then these comments came along, and we tried to address as much as we can, no granite, no fiber cement, no some of the balconies. I mean, address the parking garage, address the rooftop. We are trying everything to make it work. And at this point, if I am wrong, correct me, please. What I am thinking is maybe people are trying to kill the project. That's how I feel it. That's how I feel it. That I mean, if they don't want me to carry on with this project, it's okay. I won't do it. I will. If somebody wants to see that corner over there the way it is, nothing over there, abandoned cars, just a dirt over there, I won't do anything. The only reason I'm doing because it did not look me right. I wanted to do something, where people can come and do something and bring more business. There's a lot of on Automobile Alley. There's a lot of spaces, teeth missing. They needs to be filled up. They needs to be filled up. And if we are not going to have vibrant buildings, sometimes attractive building, and people are not going to come over there. Look at the business point of view as well, please. Consider that from business point of view as well. We need more businesses over there. We need more activities over there. We need more kind of stuff so people be if you go to any other downtowns in other cities or other states, I mean, most of the downtowns are full. People walking on the streets, doing businesses, running, and all that stuff. And we don't have that kind of activities in Oklahoma City, especially on Automobile Alley. And this was the first effort to do something, spending my own money, taking that risk, and to do something for the community, to do something for Automobile Alley, so more businesses, more investors can come and they can, invest, this kind of invest. Just imagine, I am over there on Broadway almost for 13 years. I haven't seen any new business built over there. I don't know why. I mean, in 13, 14 years, no new business has come on Automobile Alley. So I was the first who did that station, the new building, like 13 years ago, and after 13 years ago, I'm going the first for second time. And I hope and request you guys, please give me a chance to serve the community. Please give me a chance to do something so I can be, proud of. That building is going to be married to me. If I do it, that's going to be my passion, and it is my passion. So to do something, and I would only request, and please, and as far as those the top floor balconies, that's just to wrap around. For example, if one business is on the west side, other business on north side, so they can interact. That is the whole purpose of it. To if there are multiple businesses on the floor, so they can interact, people can from the street can go, they don't need to take a permission to go on the third floor or fourth floor. If there are like 3 businesses on the third floor, so our pedestrian can walk up there and they can go from one business to another business, and that is the only purpose of it.
Mr. Mohammed, we really appreciate the fact that you're doing this, and we understand that is your investment, and understand that that's a huge thing. What our job is to do is to look at a design and make sure it complies with an ordinance that has been worked through for years and with the city. And it's not an easy job, and you've just sat through a very long meeting, and you understand that we've gone from design to design. But we really want your building to be the success that the rest of that Automobile Alley is. And you're in a very unique spot, because most of those other buildings, as you pointed out, have been there since the early 1900s. And you're getting to do a new building in that location. We think that's great. We appreciate the fact that you've got some people that you're planning to put in that building already that will be really bring some enthusiasm and some energy to the area. But we're just trying to work through the design of the building so that it will work with the rest of the street, so that your neighbors will be happy with it. And I know you're the one that ultimately will be happy with it. And I don't think the suggestions that we're making would even make you unhappy with it. But I think that we appreciate your patience, but I don't think that it's ready quite yet for us to approve. And I don't want you to feel upset about that.
We feel that as far as the Automobile Alley is concerned, if you look at the maps of Automobile Alley, it's more than just Broadway. Everybody goes up and down Broadway Avenue and looks at those storefronts and building fronts on Broadway. Well, Automobile Alley extends to the sides. It's pretty shallow, of course, about a half a block on the west, but it goes back east more. And there's a lot of different things going on in Automobile Alley. And to say that the balconies and these what we call exterior walkways are setting a precedent, maybe, but there's examples all through the CBD of balconies and walkways. The old C.R. Anthony's building has a rooftop plane that extends way out, mimics very much our fourth floor balcony. So, I mean, we feel like a lot of this is subjective. And we feel that we've come, as Mr. Mohammed said, a very long way in listening. You know, we've been accused of not listening. We've been listening from day one. And we're working very hard to meet. But we would expect and hope that a body such as this would work with us as well. And we feel like a lot of this is subjective. All the comments we've been getting from a lot of bigwigs in town, too, I don't want to be throwing out names, but I can tell you they're influential people, and they like the building. Now, I know that may not sway you all, but this is important. We would ask that you would come our way some as well, please.
Any other comments?
Well, yeah, I was going to say how happy I was with the changes that you'd made to the building. I mean, the south facade, which is just plain, is now attractive. What you did to the garage is definitely an improvement. The change in the sign is a fantastic improvement, and I was the one that said, I love the balconies, and I still do. So I have to defer to my architectural friends so that we don't completely mess up, but I still think there's a place for a balcony out there. I don't know. If I'm the only one that thinks that, I'm sorry.
You mentioned the south facade. facade. We didn't talk about that, but
Oh, yes.
we
Much
did
better.
address the south facade that people were upset about in the last meeting. Thank you very much.
And my main comment about the balcony is really just the one, same one, Betsy, that you commented on, was the ones that are on top of the awning. And just because, I mean, to me, what I notice as just an amateur driving along Broadway is the awnings is really a feature that sticks out to me along Automobile Alley. And so to kind of interrupt that by having this kind of non sequitur with the balcony on top of the awning, to me, that was what stuck out to me. And so I might agree with some of the other members here on that issue.
Any other comments? I think I've lost my...
I just want to say that for myself, and having been on this committee since its inception and watched and been a part of a lot of submittals, from my perspective, we're really here to help everyone have the best building that they can possibly have. And so we're on your side, certainly not against it at all. And with that being said, just a couple of comments. I'm very happy with the brick change. I think it's just a softer segue into Automobile Alley and the historic buildings that are there without trying to replicate them. I appreciate what you've done with the parapet of the building and taking the railing off. I think that we're very close to approving this. I agree with Betsy on the second floor balcony. The second floor balconies on top of the awnings just seem odd to me. They just don't seem to quite go together. I really like the blade sign. I like the historical reference that you have included in it. I would really encourage the neon and that whole, that's I think where you have the historical reference that makes you all a part of Automobile Alley. And so I'd really love to see that historical character of that sign brought out. I appreciate the fact that we've clarified the finish on the storefront systems. So I think we're getting really very close. I could like this building better and think it fit in better with a little bit of removal of the balconies and maybe a straighter face on the west-facing side, just a cleaner look.
If it's appropriate, I had Laura pull up the second floor plan that you can see there, and there's 3 balconies on that plan, 2 on the west, 1 on the north. City staff wanted the one on the north to be removed, but hearing other committee members voice their concerns about the balconies on top of the canopy, we need to have the one that's to the south by the stairs and elevator just for our circulation. But we could delete the other 2, which is deleting the one city staff wants us to delete plus 1 more that the committee may want us to delete. That's what I'm hearing. So if you would, again, trying to work and listen to you all, if we could look for approval, and we'll take off those 2 balconies on the second floor.
And I would probably describe the one that is actually on the front of the building as the northernmost balcony on the street side, on the west facade, just to clarify, because he was saying that they would like to keep the one down by the stairs.
Well, that one's important just because of circulation, stairs and elevators.
Yeah, not to be contrary, Haven, but when you make a change like that, we need to know what it's really going to look like. And this is, as you all have said, as we have said, this is an important building. This is an extremely important building.
That's why we're working hard, too.
I know,
as you can tell.
yeah. But I would like to not try to redesign this right here, right now. I think we
Can
need.
you give us a up or down vote on, with those conditions?
Not unless we see what it really is going to look like. I don't feel like, and I think that there may be more. I would really like you to get together with Automobile Alley and see if you can come to some kind of, I know you've probably done that already.
Mr. Elliott and I have talked about the project before.
Okay. But if you could come to some kind of more of a consensus, because I feel like we are maybe closer to an approval than Automobile Alley would be. Is that fair to say, Rand?
Just to review Automobile Alley's perspective on this project, can we review, has there been any support from current individuals within Automobile Alley for the appearance of this building?
We don't know of any. The only communications have been a couple of phone calls with Mr. Elliott and myself.
So that's a concern to me as far as, again, the location of this building. The location of this building does heighten its responsibility to the community and to the character of Automobile Alley. And I would be reluctant to approve of something that very much affects that character while the current establishments within that character don't agree with the appearance of this building.
Well, if I may say so, and Rand can speak for himself, obviously, but when we last talked, there were 3 items of concern that were voiced to me. One was the storefront metal color, one was the brick color, and one was screening the north facade of the parking. We've taken care of 3 of those. 2 out of the 3 is what I meant to say. And if Rand was thinking that we had clear anodized aluminum instead of this painted finish, I don't know. But I'm just saying, you know, it's been in our documents towards the back where we show the materials of the building in our packets. We felt like, well, we had addressed 2 out of 3 of his concerns. And because Automobile Alley had a lot of different metal, I understand what Automobile Alley wants, you know, the black or bronze aluminum frames. But we're not building a historical building. We're building a building that's new, that tries to fit within the context and bring that vibrant life that the Brookings Institute is talking about is lacking. So how we marry these things together is, you know, going to be awfully tricky. And, you know, same way we just talked about on the height of the building. So I truly don't know what to say. We were not invited to make a presentation to Automobile Alley. It was closed. And that's maybe their policy. That's fine, that they make their rules. But I'm just saying, you know, I don't know how we can move forward with Automobile Alley. We're trying.
Well, would you be willing to meet with staff, Lisa and Laura, and go through this one more time?
We've done it 3 times so far, Betsy, and of course we would. But the last time Lisa said with the blade sign, she goes, "You guys have come a long way," and we feel like
we all feel like you've come a long way, but not quite. Sorry, but not quite completely where. I
don't mean to be rude, but it seems quite subjective. We want to be respectful.
Okay, and so maybe that was inappropriate for me to suggest that, because I believe the staff has outlined what they would like to see in these 4 conditions. And I think that they are also saying, and Laura, you might correct me if I'm wrong, that your all's recommendation is to approve the application if the applicant was willing to make these 4 changes.
Subject to those conditions.
Yeah.
But that's our recommendation to you today, and we were not saying, our recommendation is for the vote to be with those conditions, and listening to what you said a short while ago, it sounded like if these changes, the condition changes were proposed, you weren't comfortable unless you actually saw what they looked like.
Well, I feel like if Lisa's comfortable with these, if they would bring them back for an administrative review, that might be, how do you guys feel about that?
And what I would say to that is that they would have to do that in the process, because we would ultimately have to have that drawing staff, because that's what then they would have to turn in for their building permit. So that is factored into, they would have to come back to us with that revision. And so I just wanted to clarify that. You weren't talking about having to come back to you. You were just saying if you approved them with those conditions, then they would just be working with staff to address the conditions.
So they've already made one change, which is the brick color. Is that correct?
Well, and yes, ma'am. Actually, the 3 items of the 4 are basically taken care of. We've already stated on record that we would take off those 2 second floor balconies, the north one that they stated in their staff report, plus another one, and that we changed the brick color, and then the site triangle is an issue working through traffic. And as we've already stated, we've been trying to make that happen all this whole month. So it's the 4th floor balconies, cutting those back from the corner. I'd hate to see that happen, but we would definitely work with staff as we need to.
So how do you guys feel about that? I think I know how Mr. Bates feels about that.
I would encourage to work with Automobile Alley in every realm that you can to garner support from that community, and because there is a very well-established character there, and I know we're at the point where we're dissecting this with a very fine-tipped scalpel. And from my perspective, I do think it's slightly a bigger picture than that. I don't know that, in my personal opinion, if these conditions that have been listed out put the building within character of the Automobile Alley, and that's really where I fall back, in my opinion.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think I agree with Corey, and I would, I think, like to ask the applicant if they would consider a continuance for 1 more month to come back to us and let us see if we can't get this done.
That's okay.
Conference with a client, we were unwilling to change the fourth floor balconies. It's a plan for a very swanky restaurant up there. Cutting those back severely impacts the layout of the restaurant and circulation. We feel like we've gone pretty far already, deleting balconies and walkways. And if we can work with staff on all the items except for item A of the staff report, we're certainly willing to do that. And we're willing to work with Automobile Alley, and that sort of thing. But I don't see how we get past the building height issue that's been expressed this morning already. So we have there's some major roadblocks in the way. And, as I said, we would rather, work with staff and work through some of these things so the city is assured that we're doing what we say we'll do. And we would ask your consideration and to vote on the project one way or another.
So you would not be willing to have a continuance?
Well, we'd rather not have a continuance because we don't see the point in it. We see such a clashing of subjective opinions from different groups that what's the point? If we get turned down by this body and have to go to the Board of Appeals, we're still in 90 days out or 60 days out or whatever. It's longer to go that route than it is to continue before this body.
One thing I would say is that you're more likely to have a project if you go through this body.
We want to go through.
If you're turned down by the Board of Appeals,
and we may. But certain requirements of this body, Betsy, may terminate the project itself. That's what SAF was saying a minute ago. So, there's no way we're going to reduce the height of the buildings.
Can you clarify?
That's not going to make
it sounded like you said that's what staff was saying a while ago, and I think you were referring to the property owner.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you looked at me and I went, no, it wasn't me.
Thank you very much for the body language. I apologize. I call him Saf. His name's Saf. But anyway, that's what Safdar was saying a minute ago. And we just may get just pushed into a corner too far. I'm just being honest, and that's the only way I know to be. I'm an architect with 45 years experience. I'm not going to put my name on something that I think is going to be ugly in its context. And it may be, Rand and I started build our own offices at the same year, 1978. We've known each other a long time. He has his opinion, I have mine. That's fair enough. That's the way architecture should be. Not everything should be the same. And I understand character and context as much as he does. So I'm just saying that we just can't change the fourth floor balconies. So if that upsets staff, then it's upset staff. We can't change the height of the building, and that's going to upset Automobile Alley. I've already mentioned that we're trying to listen to Rand and what he wants us to do, and we've been doing it. So I'm just kind of at a loss. That's why I was hoping you all would try to see it in your body that you could help us with this.
Okay, I understand that Automobile Alley has a comment about 25% increase in height. However, I've been listening for any concern about that in this body, and so I'd like to take a poll as to how many people are concerned about this building's height. Connie? Nathaniel? So no one in this body is concerned, that is present today, I must say, is concerned about the height. And that's not to be contrary to Automobile Alley's ordinance. It's just that our ordinance would require us to give you a variance on height if you had anything less than 3 stories tall.
Well, I'm only bringing that up because of comments that we need to work with Automobile Alley, and I think I've already said we have been trying to listen to their comments. And that, to me, is working with Automobile Alley. But if you get to an impasse where an issue on building height, then we're at an impasse. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't see the point. That's not in disrespect of Automobile Alley, because I've already said that we've done what they've asked us to do, except for, the height of the building, which we can't change. So I'm kind of at a loss on how to deal with this.
Well, just a quick comment, and then I think we might be able to put the height issue to bed. We are here to consider our fellow bodies' information and the opinions and recommendations that they give to us as we give recommendations to other bodies, and they have those for their consideration. I think we feel differently about the height restriction. I think we respect what they say, but I think that we have already voiced that we see maybe a picture of an evolving area there where there may be more similar heights in the future. Very well could be. And so I don't know that that's on the table anymore. I think we're back. We're narrowing it.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
I can just say that you can vote on these separately if you wish to do that, as far as the items for approval.
On the issues?
On the items for approval.
I think Lisa brought that up at the last month's meeting, that you could also vote on the demolition separately. But at that point, she said, that's an integral part of the proposal. So that's why that one, you didn't vote on anything separately at all. But that's always an option, literally item by item on this if you wanted to.
Okay. Oh, come on up. We have to hear it on the microphone.
Just from business point of view, and being a very passionate member of this community and all doing business in Oklahoma City for 22 years, please, this is my passion. I request all of you, before this project is going to be killed, consider about it, because that corner is going to stay there for a long time, vacant and looking ugly. This is going to be a beautiful building, just a beautiful building, and it's not, I'm going to invest that much money to make it look bad or make it look something. Why would I waste my money on something like that? Sometimes I know all people have different professions. I'm a businessman. Maybe, if somebody understands something from business point of view, and as a passionate community member, I have met so many people, I have known so many lawyers and all community members. Everybody liked this building. Whoever I have shown it, whoever I have, apart from these little small issues, those historical stuff, and everybody I have met, I talked to, they are so, passionate to see this kind of stuff coming in. And if, we don't carry on with a project or something, that corner is going to look terrible for a long, long time to come. And please, this is nothing on balcony here and there. We have taken care of much of, we have listened to the board, we have listened to the committee, and we are trying to address all the issues and little concerns. And please, we have come long way. And this is only minor, for minor thing. Out of 100, if we get stuck with 1% or 2%, let us carry on with this project. And you will be proud of, all of you will be proud of that you guys permit something to build which is going to be really good for the city, good for the automobile. So the only reason, we have those little bargain, it is a kind of that we want, that is a requirement of the building, that's a requirement of the bring more customers in to make easy and feasible for the pedestrian, so people can, on their wish can walk and on the 4th floor and the 3rd floor, so they have easy access from business point of view. So that is the only, and this, everybody's talking about gateway to the north. This building is going to be awesome, compared to what we have there right now. So I will humbly request, please consider my, passion and my, I would like to have this building. If not, then,
What if we gave you, what if we voted on the demolition of the existing building just to get that off the table and moved to one more meeting to discuss your design next month?
So, for example, what is the point? For example, if I don't get that design approved next month, so...
I would really like you to work with Lisa Chronister at the city to work on the design a little bit, clean it up, make sure that you really feel comfortable with removing those balconies on the 2nd floor. Look at, I think that everything we've expressed, Lisa has expressed to me.
Okay, we can do that.
We have.
We will listen. As long as you let me build the building, I will do anything you guys, comment, and, I will listen to that.
Okay.
I just want to build that building. That's what I want. I hope, Automobile Alley needs some kind of investment and some, so.
Brookings Institute.
Yeah, that's right.
So just to clarify, what you're suggesting is taking action on case item number 1.
Right.
There's several items, but that's all about the demolition on the site, and then continuing all the rest of the case items to next month.
There'd be really no reason to.
Okay.
But we would appreciate it if you would have more further discussions with Automobile Alley.
Yes. We will, we will, and there is a point. For example, sometimes, what happens, you try to work with the people, and it should be from both sides. And I'm not going to be, you guys know what's going on. Probably only one person out there is, I don't know, maybe he has, I'm going to be very blunt and very upfront. Only one person has made it probably personal. Most of the majority of the members, some of them my friends know them, a couple of them I know them, and they are okay. Most likely they are okay. Maybe one person has made it personal, probably I don't know why. So it is Mr. It is Mr. Rand, and probably I need to talk to him and go to his office and talk to him, and and he needs to listen my point of view, where I'm coming from. What I'm trying to do is to make Automobile Alley look better, to make downtown look better, to give some kind of, let other people think, if this building is built, maybe some more buildings will come in. The two teeth we are missing on Broadway, maybe they will be filled in or something. So probably Mr. Rand does not know me, and probably I need to go in his office and talk to him personally and explain him, my point of view. And so maybe, so probably that's what probably I need to do or something. Otherwise, I don't see any other objections coming from any other people.
Okay.
I'm very honest and upfront guy. I don't hold anything in my heart. However I feel it, That's how I'm feeling, because only one person has made it somehow personal or something, and that's why he's trying to do all this to probably, he does not want me to, maybe it was not through him or something, that's just my point of view. Maybe it was not through him, and he has caused all this problem. Otherwise, there have not been any problem.
Well, we appreciate you working with Automobile Alley.
Yes.
And I need a motion for a couple of things.
So just to recap what I said a while ago, what you were throwing out there was to approve case item number 1, which is all the demolition items. And you might want to actually vote on these, have 2 votes, one on that, and then the next one, if you're agreeing with what has been thrown out there, would be to continue all other case items until your June 16th meeting, to allow fill in the blank.
I move to approve case item A, number 1, the demolition of the existing building, items A through E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the demolition and all of the items.
Which is case item 1, A through E, whatever, I think you
Correct.
said.
A through E. A through E. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Demolition is approved. Do we have another motion?
I'll move to continue items for consideration, number 2 through 6.
Until the June 16th meeting.
Until the June 16th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for working with
Well,
us.
And we want, I hope I'm leaving that with you all. We are wanting to work with you, and we know that this body is the proper body for these kind of issues, and we appreciate your help with us. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. We do have other business. Susan is reminding me that there is another meeting coming at 1 o'clock, 1:30. So we have to elect the officers. Do we have any nominations or volunteers?
I move to nominate Betsy as chair for the next year, until next May. And she and I go off the committee.
Does anybody else want to do that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to nominate Gigi to be vice chair.
Second.
Anybody else want to do that? That would be a good opportunity for someone that is going to be staying on the committee. And so just want to bring that up. You might get to chair a meeting, and it certainly gives you some experience, so that might be a good thing. And I would defer to someone who might like to do that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I tried.
We did try. Once again, I want to welcome Nathaniel. We are thrilled to have you, and you made a lot of good comments and asked a lot of good questions and made a motion or two. It's awesome. And any comments from the planning staff?
Just that and we'll get there next, but yes, we have items for next month's agenda.
Steve, do you have any comments?
I got questions.
Any comments from the committee members? I know all of your stomachs are growling. Thanks for sticking this out. Next meeting is June 16th, and we are adjourned.
That's it.